I sent $300,000 to give my daughter Sarah a happy life. What does a mother do when her child is treated like garbage? I know it hurts, baby. Let it go. I've got you.
I sent $300,000 to give my daughter Sarah a happy life. I thought I was building her future, but that Christmas Eve, when I arrived in Denver, what did I find? My Sarah, the daughter I love more than anything, abandoned on a porch, shivering in -5-degree cold, wearing only a thin sweater, her face and neck covered in bruises like cruel stamps of abuse. They were inside, raising champagne glasses, laughing, as if my daughter didn't exist. What does a mother do when her child is treated like garbage in the very home she poured her heart into building? Welcome to Voices of Auntie Rose, where stories of family, forgiveness, resilience, and the courage to rise above betrayal come to life with heart and soul. We're so glad you're here, joining a community that celebrates the unbreakable human spirit. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story. And it would be amazing if you could like this video, share it, or drop a comment letting us know what time it is and which city or country you're watching from. Your shares and comments are the greatest gift, the powerful inspiration that keeps this channel growing and spreading meaningful life lessons every single day. Now, let's dive into today's story. The wheels of my suitcase clicked rhythmically against the polished floor of Boston Logan International Airport as I hurried toward the exit, my heart racing with an excitement I hadn't felt in months. At 64 years old, I'd spent the last 6 months drowning in back-to-back marketing campaigns, client meetings that stretched past midnight, and business dinners where I smiled until my face ached. But tonight, Christmas Eve, October 25th, 2025, none of that mattered. Tonight, I was going home to my Sarah. I clutched my phone, staring at the screen for the 100th time. Still no response to my texts, no returned calls. Just silence that gnawed at the edges of my anticipation like frost creeping across a window pane. She's probably just busy with Christmas preparations, I whispered to myself, trying to push away the cold tendril of worry wrapping around my chest. But mothers know. Deep in our bones, we know when something isn't right. The automatic doors whooshed open, and Boston's December air hit me like a slap, bitter, unforgiving, seeping through my wool coat as if it were tissue paper. Families rushed past me, children squealing with delight, fathers hoisting luggage, mothers herding everyone toward waiting cars. I watched a little girl, maybe 5 years old, pressed against her mother's leg, clutching a candy cane. The mother bent down, kissed her forehead, and wrapped a scarf around her neck with such tender care that my throat tightened. I used to do that for Sarah. I used to be the one tucking scarves around her neck, the one she ran to when the world felt too big and scary. Now, I was the executive who sent wire transfers instead of hugs, the mother who showed love through bank statements because I was never there to show it in person. $300,000. That's how much I'd sent Sarah over the past 3 years. Not in small amounts, not sparingly, but in desperate, generous waves of $15,000 here, $20,000 there, even a lump sum of $75,000 when she and David said they needed to renovate their Cherry Creek home. For our future family, Mom, Sarah had said, her voice so hopeful it broke my heart. For the nursery we've always dreamed about. I gave it all. Every penny I could spare from my executive salary at Chen and Associates Marketing. Because that's what mothers do, we give until we have nothing left, hoping our children will never know the hunger we've tasted, the cold we've endured, the loneliness we've suffered. The taxi line snaked around the terminal, but I barely noticed. My mind was already in Denver, already imagining Sarah's face when I knocked on her door. Would she cry? Would she laugh? Would she throw her arms around me the way she used to when she was little, when I was her whole world and she was mine? I finally reached the front of the line. A tired-looking driver with kind eyes loaded my luggage, just one suitcase, because I'd learned to pack light over the years. Inside that suitcase, wrapped in tissue paper, was the cream-colored cashmere scarf Sarah had given me for my 58th birthday. She'd saved up her own money to buy it, back when she still had her own money, before David and his family swallowed her whole. "Where to?" the driver asked. "Denver," I said, then caught myself. "I mean Back Bay. I need to catch my flight to Denver." He nodded, and we pulled away from the curb. Through the window, I watched Boston blur past the historic buildings, the Christmas lights strung between lampposts, the couples walking hand in hand through Faneuil Hall. My phone buzzed. For a split second, hope flared in my chest. But it wasn't Sarah. It was my assistant, reminding me about the client presentation on December 28th. I silenced the phone and shoved it into my purse. At the gate, I tried calling Sarah again. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. My pulse quickened with each ring. Then, voicemail. Her voice bright and cheerful. "Hi, you've reached Sarah. I can't come to the phone right now, but leave me a message and I'll call you back." Except she wouldn't call back. She hadn't called back in 3 days. I left a message anyway, trying to keep my voice light. "Sweetheart, it's Mom. Just wanted to hear your voice before the holidays get too crazy. Call me when you can. I love you." I paused, then added, "More than anything in this world." As I boarded the plane, I couldn't shake the memory of my last real conversation with Sarah, not a text, not a rushed phone call between meetings, but an actual conversation. It was 6 months ago, right before I left for this marathon work stretch. We'd been sitting in her kitchen in Denver, the morning sun streaming through the windows, and she'd made French toast the way I taught her, with cinnamon and vanilla. "Mom," she'd said, her hands wrapped around a coffee mug, "do you think I'm broken?" The question had hit me like a physical blow. "What? Sarah, no. Why would you even—" "4 times, Mom. 4 times I couldn't." Her voice cracked. "David's family keeps saying maybe I'm not meant to be a mother, maybe something's wrong with me." I'd reached across the table, gripped her hands so tightly I could feel her pulse against my palms. "Listen to me. You are not broken. You are my daughter, and you are perfect exactly as you are. Those miscarriages, they're not your fault. They're nobody's fault." But even as I said it, I saw the doubt in her eyes. The Whitmores had already planted their poison so deep it had taken root. I should have stayed. I should have canceled every meeting, every campaign, every goddamn client dinner and stayed with my daughter. But I didn't. I flew back to Boston because the Singapore account needed me, because the merger couldn't wait, because I foolishly believed that money could substitute for presence. $300,000. I'd given them $300,000 of my hard-earned money, thinking I was helping build Sarah's future, thinking I was being a good mother, even from a distance. The plane landed in Denver at 7:43 p.m. By the time I collected my luggage and found a taxi, it was past 8. Snow had started falling thick, heavy flakes that reminded me why I'd moved to Boston in the first place, but Denver was home. Denver was where I'd raised Sarah after her father died, where I'd worked 3 jobs to put her through college, where every street corner held a memory of her growing up. "Cherry Creek, please," I told the taxi driver, giving him the address. "And could you maybe drive a little faster? It's Christmas Eve, and I want to surprise my daughter." The driver, a middle-aged man with a Denver Broncos cap, smiled at me through the rearview mirror. "Surprising family on Christmas, that's beautiful. You must be excited." "I am," I said, and meant it. Despite the worry, despite the unanswered calls, I was excited, because in just a few minutes, I'd see Sarah. I'd hold her. I'd make sure she knew she was loved, truly loved, in a way that had nothing to do with money or expectations, or the cruel standards the Whitmores had imposed on her. The taxi wound through Denver's streets, past houses glowing with Christmas lights, past families visible through windows, gathered around trees and dinner tables. Normal families, happy families. Families where mothers weren't separated from daughters by 6 months and 600 miles of terrible decisions. We turned onto Sarah's street, and my heart began to hammer. "Actually," I said, "could you stop here? About a block away? I want to walk up. Make it more of a surprise." The driver pulled over. I paid him, added a generous tip because it was Christmas Eve, and stood on the snow-covered sidewalk, my suitcase beside me, the cashmere scarf wrapped around my neck. The house was just ahead, its windows blazing with light, smoke curling from the chimney. And then I saw her. My daughter. My Sarah. Sitting on the front porch in nothing but a thin cardigan, her shoulders hunched against the cold, her whole body shaking like a leaf in a storm. The temperature was -5 degrees Fahrenheit. I'd checked on my phone, -5. And she was outside, alone, while through the bay window I could see them. David, his parents Robert and Patricia, his sister Ashley, all gathered around a table laden with food, raising crystal champagne flutes, laughing. The suitcase fell from my hand. The world tilted. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be my daughter, my baby girl, left outside in a blizzard while her husband's family celebrated Christmas without her. But it was real. And as I started running toward her, my boots slipping on ice, my breath coming in painful gasps, I knew with absolute certainty that everything I'd feared during those unanswered calls was true. The Whitmores hadn't just taken my money. They'd taken my daughter's soul. And I was about to take it back. My boots hit the icy walkway, and I nearly went down. The world became a blur of white snow and yellow light bleeding from the windows, but nothing mattered except reaching her. Each step felt like wading through concrete, my 64-year-old knees screaming in protest, but I pushed forward, 20 feet, 15, 10. Sarah! Her name tore from my throat, raw and desperate. She lifted her head, and the sight of her face shattered something fundamental inside me. Her lips were blue, actually blue, like something from a medical textbook about hypothermia. Her eyes, once so bright and full of dreams, were hollow and red-rimmed, surrounded by dark circles that looked like bruises. Ice crystals clung to her eyelashes. Her hands, those delicate hands that used to braid my hair when she was little, were pressed between her knees, trying desperately to generate warmth that wouldn't come. "Mom?" The word came out as barely a whisper, like she didn't quite believe I was real. I crashed to my knees beside her, ignoring the shock of cold concrete against my legs. My hands were already moving, yanking off my North Face parka, the $800 one I'd bought specifically for this Denver winter, thinking I'd be warm and cozy inside Sarah's home, not kneeling on her porch watching her freeze to death. "I've got you, baby, I've got you." I wrapped the jacket around her shoulders and she felt like ice beneath my touch. Not cold. Ice. Like something already dead that was just going through the motions of living. Her teeth chattered so violently I could hear them clicking together. She tried to speak, but only managed. So cold. Through the bay window, that massive, pretentious bay window that my $75,000 check had paid for, I could see them all. David, his back to us, gesturing grandly with a champagne flute. His father Robert, that silver-haired snake in his Brooks Brothers suit, leaning back in his chair like a king surveying his domain. Patricia, dripping in pearls I knew cost more than most people's cars, dabbing at her lips with a cloth napkin. And Ashley, David's sister, her blonde hair perfectly curled, laughing at something with her head thrown back. The dining table was a magazine spread come to life. A golden brown turkey, easily 20 pounds, sat on a silver platter. Bowls of truffle mac and cheese, David's favorite. I remembered Sarah telling me once, her voice small, how she'd spent hours making it from scratch only to have Patricia complain it wasn't as good as the chef's version. Cranberry sauce glistening in a crystal dish. Green bean casserole. Sweet potato soufflé. 3 pies cooling on the sideboard, pumpkin pecan and what looked like apple. The kind of spread that cost hundreds of dollars. The kind that said we have everything. The kind that made you forget there was a human being freezing on the porch. And in the center of it all, next to the turkey, I could see it. The baccarat crystal vase I'd sent last Christmas, filled with red roses. $300 for that vase. I'd picked it myself at Bloomingdale's, wrapped it personally, written a card that said, "For the daughter-in-law who has everything, from a mother-in-law who wishes she could be there more." Patricia had sent me a text. "Received the vase. Very adequate." Adequate. $300 was adequate. "How long?" My voice came out strangled. "How long have you been out here?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears that immediately froze on her cheeks. Since 5. Maybe 4:30. 4:30. I looked at my watch. 8:17. Nearly 4 hours. 4 hours in -5-degree weather and nothing but a cardigan, and I looked down and felt bile rise in my throat house slippers. Not even boots. Slippers. The cheap kind from Target, already soaked through, snow packed around her ankles. Why? But even as I asked, I knew. I knew because I'd been ignoring the signs for months. The phone calls that came less frequently. The flat tone in her voice. The way she'd stopped talking about the future, about babies, about dreams. I dropped the gravy boat. Her voice cracked. The Wedgwood one. Patricia's grandmother's. It slipped and David said I did it on purpose. Said I was trying to ruin Christmas because I'm jealous of Ashley's kids. He told me to get out until I could fix my attitude. My hands were shaking now, but not from cold, from rage. Pure, incandescent rage that started in my belly and spread through every vein, every capillary until I felt like I might combust right there on that porch. A gravy boat. They'd locked my daughter out in a blizzard over a gravy boat. I pulled her tighter against me, trying to share my body heat, but she was so cold. Too cold. Her breathing was shallow and rapid. I recognized the signs from the first aid training I'd taken years ago. Early stage hypothermia, maybe moderate. We needed to get her warm. Now, can you stand? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. She tried. God, she tried, but her legs buckled immediately, and I caught her, my own knees nearly giving out under her weight. She'd lost weight, so much weight. Her arms, visible beneath the wet cardigan, were stick-thin. Her collarbones jutted out sharply beneath her skin. When did you last eat? The question came out before I could stop it. She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I looked at the window again, and this time, Ashley saw me. Our eyes met through the glass. For one moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Was it shame? Guilt? But then she turned to Patricia and said something. They both looked at us. Patricia's mouth curved into what might have been a smile, but looked more like a smirk. Neither of them moved toward the door. The porch light above us flickered, and in that brief moment of brightness, I saw something I'd missed before. Sarah's wrists. Thin red marks, like someone had grabbed her. Hard. Recently. Sarah. My voice came out deadly quiet. Did someone hurt you? She pulled away, tucking her hands into the jacket. I'm just clumsy. You know me. But I did know her. I knew that Sarah, my careful, graceful daughter who'd taken ballet for 12 years, didn't just get clumsy. Someone had put those marks there. Someone had gripped her hard enough to leave bruises. The front door suddenly swung open, and David filled the doorway. 6'2", 200 pounds of entitled arrogance wrapped in a Ralph Lauren cashmere sweater that I'd bet my last dollar Sarah had bought him with the money I'd sent. His face was flushed from wine or anger. I couldn't tell. Probably both. Margaret. He didn't say it warmly. He said my name like it was something distasteful he'd found stuck to his shoe. This is unexpected. I rose slowly, keeping Sarah behind me. Every muscle in my legs protested, but I drew myself up to my full 5'6" and met his eyes. My daughter is freezing on your porch. Our porch, actually. He leaned against the doorframe, deliberately blocking the entrance. And she's out here because she needs to learn that actions have consequences. Adults don't throw tantrums and break priceless family heirlooms. She's been out here for 4 hours in sub-zero temperatures. She could die. He shrugged. Actually shrugged. Maybe she should have thought about that before she decided to ruin Christmas for everyone. Behind him, I could see Robert approaching, adjusting his tie with that particular gesture that rich men use when they want you to remember they're richer than you. Patricia appeared beside him, still holding her wine glass, her expression one of mild annoyance, like we were solicitors who'd interrupted her dinner. David, Robert's voice boomed out, deep and authoritative. Who's at the door? It's Margaret, Sarah's mother. The way he said Sarah's mother like I was, some distant relation, some inconvenience, rather than the woman who'd given this family $300,000 over 3 years. Robert's face smoothed into a practiced smile, the kind lawyer's perfect in courtrooms. Margaret, what a surprise. We didn't know you were coming to Denver for the holidays. I'm taking my daughter home, I said flatly. Home? Patricia's laugh was like breaking glass. This is her home, Margaret. She's a married woman. You can't just swoop in and... Watch me. I bent down and scooped Sarah into my arms. At 64, I probably shouldn't have been able to lift a full-grown woman, but adrenaline and rage made me strong. She weighed nothing. Absolutely nothing. Like a bird made of hollow bones and broken dreams. You can't do this, David said, but he didn't move to stop me. Coward. He'd throw his wife outside in a blizzard but wouldn't physically confront her mother. Bill me for the gravy boat, I shot back. I'm sure you'll find my checkbook very accommodating. You always have. That landed. I saw it in the tightening of his jaw, the flash of something ugly in his eyes. Robert stepped forward, his hand raised in what he probably thought was a calming gesture. Now, Margaret, let's be reasonable. Sarah is clearly having one of her episodes. She's been seeing a therapist. For the depression you caused. The words exploded out of me. 4 miscarriages. 4 times my daughter's heart broke, and instead of supporting her, you people I couldn't even finish. My throat closed up. Those miscarriages, Patricia said, her voice dripping with disdain, were nobody's fault but her own. Weak constitution, bad genetics. Some women simply aren't meant to be mothers. The world went red. I don't remember making the decision to move. One moment I was standing still, Sarah in my arms, and the next I was on the porch, face to face with Patricia, close enough to smell her Chanel No. 5 perfume. "Say that again," I whispered. "I dare you." Patricia's smile faltered. "Good." Sarah stirred in my arms, her voice barely audible. "Mom, please, let's just go, please." And that broken plea from my daughter was what saved Patricia from whatever I might have done next. Because Sarah needed me, not the vengeful version. Not the version that wanted to tear this family apart with her bare hands, the version that could get her somewhere warm and safe. I turned and walked down those porch steps, my daughter in my arms, her wet slippers leaving a trail of melted snow. Behind me I heard David call out, "Don't bother coming back. She's not welcome here anymore." I didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge him, just kept walking toward the street where, miraculously, a taxi was passing. I flagged it down with one hand, still holding Sarah with the other. The driver, a young woman with kind eyes, took one look at us and immediately unlocked the doors. "Hospital?" she asked. "No." Sarah's hand clutched at my jacket. "No hospital. Please. Mom. Just somewhere warm." I gave the driver my hotel address, the Ritz-Carlton downtown, where Chen and Associates kept a corporate suite. "Fast as you can," I added. As we pulled away, I looked back one last time. David was standing in the doorway, backlit by all that warmth and light in abundance. Ashley had joined him, and they were both watching us go. Neither looked concerned, neither looked sorry. They looked relieved. The taxi's heater blasted warm air that felt like needles against my frozen skin, but Sarah shivered harder, her teeth chattering in violent bursts that made her whole body convulse. I pulled her closer, rubbing her arms, her back, trying to create friction, warmth, life. The driver kept glancing at us in the rearview mirror, her eyes wide with concern. "Miss, I really think she needs a hospital," she said softly. "She doesn't look good." "I'm fine," Sarah whispered, but her lips barely moved. "Just tired." Tired. The word punched through me because I knew what it meant. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, the kind that settles into your bones and makes you wonder if getting up tomorrow is worth the effort. "The Ritz-Carlton," I told the driver again, more firmly. "She'll be warm there, I promise." Through the taxi window, Denver's Christmas lights blurred past red and green and gold, strings of joy that mocked us. Families walked together on sidewalks, carrying shopping bags and wrapped presents. A father hoisted his little boy onto his shoulders so he could see the decorations better. A couple stood beneath mistletoe outside a restaurant, kissing while snow fell around them like a Hallmark movie. And here we were, a mother and daughter fleeing a house that should have been a home. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't need to look to know who it was. David, or Robert, or Patricia. It didn't matter. They were all the same, a wall of wealth and entitlement that had slowly suffocated my daughter until she'd forgotten how to breathe. Sarah's head lolled against my shoulder, and panic spiked through me. "Sarah? Sarah, honey? Stay awake. Talk to me." "About what?" Her voice was so small, so defeated. "Anything. Tell me about the gravy boat, the one you broke." A tear slid down her cheek. It was Wedgwood. Blue Italian pattern. Patricia said it was a family heirloom from 1873, worth $8,000. $8,000 for a gravy boat. While my daughter wore Target slippers with holes in them. "I was bringing it to the table," Sarah continued, her voice monotone, like she was reciting a crime she'd committed. "My hands were shaking. I don't know why. They just shake sometimes now." And it slipped, just slipped right through my fingers and shattered on the floor. I could picture it. The horrified silence. Patricia's gasp. David's immediate anger. Patricia screamed at me, called me worthless. Said I couldn't do anything right, that I was an embarrassment to the family. Sarah's breathing hitched. Ashley said maybe if I wasn't so depressed all the time, I wouldn't be so clumsy. Robert said I needed to learn responsibility. And David. What did David do? He grabbed my arm, pulled me into the kitchen, said I was ruining Christmas for everyone, that his family had been looking forward to this day, and I'd destroyed it in 5 seconds, he said. She stopped, swallowed hard. He said maybe his parents were right. Maybe I wasn't Whitmore material. Maybe I was just some charity case he'd made the mistake of marrying. My vision blurred with tears I refused to let fall. Not yet. Not while Sarah needed me to be strong. Then he opened the back door and told me to stay outside until I could come back with an attitude adjustment. He said the cold might help clear my head, help me remember what real problems were like. The back door? Not even the front porch initially. The back door, where the wind whipped through the alley, where there was no shelter at all. How did you end up on the front porch? After an hour, I was so cold I couldn't feel my feet anymore. I crawled around to the front, hoping someone would see me, hoping someone would care. Her voice broke completely, but nobody came. I could hear them through the window, laughing. Ashley's kids were opening presents early. Someone made a joke about the gravy boat, about how at least they'd have a funny story to tell at next year's Christmas. They were laughing, Mom, laughing while I was freezing. The taxi pulled up to the Ritz-Carlton, its golden lights and red awning a stark contrast to the Cherry Creek house we'd fled. The driver helped me get Sarah out of the car. I pressed $200 bills into her hand. That's too much, she protested. It's Christmas Eve, I said. And you have kind eyes. Thank you for not asking too many questions. She nodded, squeezed my hand. Take care of your daughter, ma'am. She's lucky to have you. Lucky. The word felt like ashes in my mouth. If Sarah was lucky, she wouldn't have married David Whitmore. If she was lucky, I would have been there instead of building marketing empires in Boston. If she was lucky, she'd still believe that love meant something other than pain. The hotel lobby was everything Cherry Creek pretended to be, but wasn't genuinely warm, genuinely welcoming. The night manager took one look at Sarah's blue lips and soaked slippers and immediately called for the suite key and extra blankets. Should I call a doctor, Miss Chen? He asked quietly. Not yet. Let me get her warm first. In the elevator, Sarah's eyes drifted closed. Mom? Right here, baby. I'm sorry I didn't answer your calls. David took my phone 3 days ago. Said I was spending too much time complaining to you instead of being grateful for everything his family had done for me. $300,000. That's what the Whitmores had done. They'd taken $300,000 of my money and convinced my daughter she should be grateful for the privilege of being abused. The corporate suite was on the 23rd floor, 2 bedrooms, a living area with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Denver's skyline, a full kitchen that I knew neither of us would use. I carried Sarah directly to the master bathroom and set her gently on the closed toilet lid. We need to warm you up slowly, I said, turning on the shower to lukewarm, not hot, because I remembered that much from first aid training. Too much heat too fast could send someone into shock. I helped her out of the soaked cardigan. Underneath, her blouse was thin silk, expensive, I noted, probably another gift she'd bought with my money to try to fit into Patricia's world. Her bra was visible through the wet fabric, and I could count her ribs. When did you last eat a real meal? I asked again. I eat, she said defensively, but couldn't meet my eyes. Sarah. Patricia says I need to lose weight if I ever want to carry a baby to term, she says. Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. She says my body rejected the babies because even my own womb knew I wasn't good enough to be a mother. I actually felt it the moment something inside me shattered beyond repair. Not broke, shattered. Like that Wedgwood gravy boat, except no amount of glue would ever put these pieces back together. Get in the shower, I managed to say through the lump in my throat. I'll get you dry clothes. While she showered, I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let myself cry. Not delicate tears, ugly, gasping sobs that tore through my chest and made my whole body shake. I cried for every phone call I'd ignored because a client meeting ran late, for every time I'd sent money instead of showing up, for every moment I'd believed that success in Boston meant I was being a good mother, when really I was just giving Sarah more ammunition to buy her way into a family that would never accept her. My phone buzzed again. This time I looked. David. Hope you're happy. You've turned Sarah against her own family. My parents are devastated. Another text, this one from a number I didn't recognize but suspected was Patricia. Your daughter broke an irreplaceable heirloom and you reward her? This is why she'll never grow up. You coddle her instead of teaching her consequences. And then, from Robert, Margaret, let's discuss this like adults. Sarah needs professional help that you're clearly not qualified to provide. My colleagues at the psychiatric center have agreed to evaluate her after the holidays. It's for her own good. Psychiatric center. They wanted to lock my daughter away, convince the world she was crazy so nobody would believe her when she finally told the truth about them. I blocked all 3 numbers. The bathroom door opened, and Sarah emerged in the hotel robe, her hair wrapped in a towel. Her face had regained some color, but her eyes were still hollow. She looked at me, saw my tears, and immediately her own face crumpled. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. I ruined your Christmas. I ruin everything. I stood and crossed to her in 3 steps, pulling her into my arms. No, baby. You didn't ruin anything. They did. David did. His family did. But not you. Never you. She collapsed against me, and we stood there in that expensive hotel suite, 2 women holding each other while outside the windows. Denver celebrated a holiday that meant nothing to us anymore. I gave them everything, I whispered into her hair. $300,000. I gave them $300,000 thinking I was helping you build a life, and they used it to build a cage. Sarah pulled back, her eyes wide. 300,000? Mom, no, David said. He said you'd only sent maybe 50,000 total. He said you were too busy with work to help us more than that. The room tilted. I sent 15,000 in March, 20,000 in June, 75,000 in August for the house renovation, another 60,000 in September for David's investment opportunity, and 50,000 last month for what he said was a down payment on a bigger house for when the baby came. Sarah's face went white. I never saw that money, any of it. David said we were living on his salary, that I should be grateful his family was supporting us while I was unable to contribute. Unable to contribute. Because she was grieving. Because she was depressed. Because she'd lost 4 babies and her husband's family blamed her for it. Where did the money go? Sarah whispered. I didn't know, but I was going to find out. Outside the windows, fireworks suddenly exploded over downtown Denver, someone's early celebration, red and gold and green bursting against the black sky, beautiful and violent and temporary. Just like everything the Whitmores had built on my daughter's broken dreams. The fireworks faded into smoke, leaving only the reflection of city lights on Sarah's pale face. She stood frozen in the hotel robe, her wet hair dripping onto the plush carpet, staring at me like I'd just told her the earth was flat. 300,000, she repeated, her voice hollow. $300,000. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. Behind us, the shower was still running in the bathroom, steam billowing out into the bedroom, making the whole space feel dreamlike, nightmarish. Sarah's legs gave out. Just collapsed beneath her like someone had cut her strings. I lunged forward, catching her before she hit the floor, guiding her to sit on the edge of the bed. Her whole body was trembling again, but this time not from cold. I didn't know, she whispered. Mom, I swear I didn't know. David handles all the money, he said. He always said we were barely getting by. That his parents were helping with the mortgage. That I needed to be more grateful for everything they did for us. Her hands clutched at the robe, twisting the fabric. Last month, I asked if we could buy new winter boots because mine had holes in them. David got so angry. Said I was being selfish. Said with his mother's medical bills and his father's retirement investments, we couldn't afford luxuries. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. But you sent 50,000 last month? For a down payment on a bigger house, I said, each word tasting like poison. David called me at the office. Said you'd found the perfect place in Cherry Creek. 4 bedrooms, big backyard. He said you were so excited about finally having space for a nursery. He sent me pictures of beautiful Victorian with a wraparound porch. Sarah shook her head slowly. I never saw pictures. We never talked about moving. Mom, we don't even have a joint bank account. David said it was better to keep finances separate until I was mentally stable enough to handle money responsibility. Mentally stable, like depression from losing 4 babies was some kind of character flaw, like grief was a symptom of financial incompetence. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking so badly I could barely unlock it. I need to show you something. I opened my banking app, navigating to the transfer history. 3 years of transactions, wire transfers to David Whitmore, every single one with a note. For Sarah's future. For the house renovation. For medical expenses. For investment opportunity. For nursery furniture. For holiday expenses. Sarah took the phone from me, scrolling through the list. Her face went from pale to gray. October 15th, $15,000. Note says for Sarah's therapy and medication. Mom, I haven't been to therapy since June. My insurance covers it anyway, and I'm not on any medication. David said antidepressants were for people who couldn't handle reality. The room spun. I sat down hard on the bed beside her, my own breathing coming too fast. September 3rd, $60,000. For David's investment in the tech startup. He said you were excited about it. Said it was a sure thing that would secure your financial future. I don't know anything about a tech startup. Sarah's voice was barely audible. David doesn't tell me about his work. Says it's too complicated for me to understand. I kept scrolling, kept reading the notes I'd typed so carefully, believing I was helping, believing I was being a good mother from a distance. August 12th, $75,000. For house renovation, new kitchen, master bathroom, nursery. You sent me a text that day. Do you remember? Sarah closed her eyes. I said, thank you for always being there for me, even when you're far away. You didn't know what you were thanking me for, did you? She shook her head, and a sob broke free. I thought you'd sent flowers. There was a small bouquet that day, daisies from the grocery store. $20 maybe. David said they were from you. I thought. She laughed, a broken sound that had nothing to do with humor. I thought you'd sent me $20 daisies and I was so grateful because at least it meant you were thinking of me. $20. I'd sent $75,000 and my daughter got $20 grocery store daisies. Where is it? Sarah's voice turned sharp, cutting through the fog of my shock. Where did all that money go? We're not living some extravagant lifestyle, Mom. The house is nice, but it's not paid off. I see the mortgage statements. David's car is a 3-year-old Audi. I drive a 10-year-old Honda Civic that breaks down every other month. We don't go on vacations. We barely go out to dinner. I had wondered about that. Every time I'd sent money, I'd pictured Sarah's life getting easier, more comfortable, happier. But in our video calls back, when we still had video calls, the background never changed. Same furniture, same decorations, same worn-out curtains that I remembered from when they'd first moved in. You've made it this far? Go ahead and hit like to let me know you're still with me. You know, every share you make might help someone out there find a little hope. And before we continue, don't forget to subscribe because, who knows, the next story might just touch your heart. I'm going to find out, I said, standing up. The rage that had been building since I saw Sarah on that porch crystallized into something hard and focused. I'm calling my lawyer first thing tomorrow. We're going to trace every penny. Mom, it's Christmas! Sarah's voice was small. Can't we have one night where we don't think about this? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. The shadows under her eyes, the way her collarbones jutted out, the red marks on her wrists that were darkening into bruises, the defeat in every line of her body. She'd been fighting alone for so long. Tonight, she just wanted to rest. Okay, I said softly, sitting back down and pulling her against me. Okay, baby. Tonight we rest. Tomorrow we fight. We sat like that for a long time, my chin on top of her head, her arms wrapped around my waist like she used to do when she was little and afraid of thunderstorms. Outside, Denver continued its Christmas celebrations, car horns honking, people laughing in the streets below, the distant sound of church bells ringing midnight mass. I was going to leave him, Sarah finally said. 3 weeks ago. I'd packed a bag. Put it in the trunk of my car. I was going to drive to Boulder, stay with my friend Rachel from college. Do you remember Rachel? The one who did theater? With the red hair? That's her. She said I could stay as long as I needed. She said she'd always known David was wrong for me. Sarah's fingers twisted in the fabric of my shirt, but then David found the bag. He went through the trunk looking for jumper cables and found it. He didn't yell. That's the thing, he didn't even yell. He just brought the bag inside, unpacked everything in front of me, and put it all back in my drawers. Then he sat me down and explained, very calmly, that leaving would be a mistake. What did he say? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. He said I had nothing. No job. I'd quit my teaching position when we got married because Patricia said it wasn't appropriate for a Whitmore wife to work. No money because we kept finances separate. No support system because I'd lost touch with most of my friends after the miscarriages. He said if I left, I'd be alone with nothing but my mental health issues, and no judge would give me anything in a divorce because I hadn't contributed financially to the marriage. My hands clenched into fists. He was wrong. Sarah, he was lying. Colorado is a no-fault divorce state. You'd be entitled to— I didn't know that, she interrupted. I don't know anything about divorce law or property law or my rights. David's a lawyer, Mom. His father was a judge. His sister sells real estate. They know everything, and I know nothing, and they reminded me of that every single day. The manipulation was breathtaking in its cruelty. They'd isolated her, controlled her, convinced her she was helpless, all while stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars that I'd sent to help her. Then he said something else. Sarah's voice dropped to barely a whisper. He said if I tried to leave, if I tried to divorce him, he'd make sure everyone knew about my mental health problems. He'd tell people I was unstable, dangerous. He said his family had connections at every major hospital and psychiatric facility in Colorado. He could have me committed for evaluation, make sure I never worked as a teacher again. Make sure I never had custody of children, not that I could have them anyway. The room went dark at the edges of my vision. Not from fainting, from pure, distilled hatred. He threatened to have you committed. He said it was for my own good. That people who'd lost 4 babies and still thought they deserved to be mothers clearly had something wrong with them. That maybe some time in a facility would help me accept reality. I stood up so fast the bed shook. Sarah grabbed my arm. Mom, don't. Please. I shouldn't have told you. Just forget it. Forget it? I turned to look at her. Sarah, he threatened to institutionalize you for being depressed. That's not just cruel. That's I stopped because I didn't have words big enough for what it was. My phone buzzed. Another text. This time from Ashley. Just so you know, we're filing a police report. You assaulted Patricia tonight. She has witnesses. Hope your little rescue mission was worth a criminal record. I showed the text to Sarah. Her face went even paler. Oh God. Mom, did you push Patricia? Did you touch her? I got close to her. I didn't lay a hand on her. It doesn't matter. They'll say you did. They'll find witnesses who'll say whatever Robert tells them to say. Sarah's breathing was speeding up, panic setting in. Mom, Robert still has friends at the district attorney's office. He plays golf with 3 of the judges. Ashley's married to a police lieutenant. They can make this go away for themselves and make it stick to you. She was right. I knew she was right. The Whitmores had spent decades building their network of power and influence. I was just one woman with a bank account they'd already drained. But I had something they didn't. I have the truth, I said, and I have proof of wire fraud. David took money under false pretenses. That's a federal crime. They'll say I knew. They'll say, we conspired together to steal from you. Sarah was fully panicking now, her breath coming in gasps. They'll twist everything. Make me the villain. Make you look like a vindictive mother who can't accept that her daughter's marriage failed. I knelt in front of her, taking her face in my hands. Look at me, Sarah, look at me. She did, her eyes wild with fear. I'm not afraid of them, I said clearly. I don't care what they do to me. I don't care about the money. All I care about is getting you safe and keeping you safe. Do you understand? But Mom, I have resources they don't know about. I have lawyers in 3 states. I have connections at marketing firms across the country who owe me favors. And most importantly, I have documentation of every single transfer, every phone call, every lie David told me. I squeezed her hands. We're going to take them down, all of them. But first you need to sleep. When was the last time you really slept? Sarah's eyes filled with tears again. I don't remember. I pulled her to her feet and guided her to the bed, pulling back the covers. The hotel sheets were crisp and white and clean, nothing like the life she'd been living. Then sleep now. I'll be right here. I'm not going anywhere. She climbed into bed like a child, curling onto her side. I covered her with the duvet, tucked it around her shoulders the way I used to when she was small. Mom? Her voice was already drowsy. What if they're right? What if I am broken? I brushed her hair back from her forehead. Then we're both broken. And broken things can heal. Broken things can become stronger at the cracked places. Her eyes drifted closed. Within minutes, her breathing evened out. I sat in the chair by the window, watching my daughter sleep, and watching Denver's lights blur through my tears. Tomorrow would come soon enough. Tomorrow the war would begin. But tonight, I'd won the only battle that mattered. I'd gotten my daughter back. I didn't sleep, couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's blue lips, heard Patricia's venomous voice, felt the ghost of those bruises on my daughter's wrists. So I sat in that chair by the window and watched the sun rise over Denver Christmas morning, pink and gold light spilling across the mountains, beautiful and indifferent to our suffering. My phone had been buzzing all night. Texts, calls, voicemails piling up like snow. I'd muted it hours ago, but now, with dawn breaking and Sarah still sleeping, I finally looked. 23 missed calls, 47 text messages, and 3 emails, all from David's personal attorney. I opened the emails first. The subject lines alone made my blood pressure spike. Notice of trespass, cease and desist, intent to file emergency protective order. The first email, time-stamped at 11:42 p.m. on Christmas Eve, read like a legal assault. Miss Margaret Chen, you are hereby notified that your actions on December 24, 2025 constituted criminal trespass, assault, kidnapping, and interference with domestic relations. Mrs. Patricia Whitmore suffered emotional distress and physical injury due to your aggressive confrontation. Mr. David Whitmore is prepared to file emergency protective orders preventing you from contacting his wife, Sarah Whitmore, or coming within 500 feet of the Whitmore family residence. We demand your immediate written confirmation that you will cease all contact with Mrs. Sarah Whitmore and return her to her legal residence within 24 hours. Failure to comply will result in criminal charges and civil litigation. Kidnapping. They were calling it kidnapping. I'd rescued my daughter from hypothermia, and they were threatening to have me arrested for kidnapping. I took 3 deep breaths, the way I used to teach Sarah when she was little and having anxiety attacks before school plays. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Feel the anger. Don't become the anger. The second email was worse. It included a psychiatric evaluation forged. It had to be forged, claiming Sarah had been diagnosed with severe delusional disorder and paranoid personality disorder 3 months ago. The doctor's name was Dr. Edmund Whitmore, Robert's brother, a psychiatrist who'd lost his license in California for falsifying records but apparently still practiced under the radar in Colorado. They'd created a paper trail, documented evidence that Sarah was mentally unstable, dangerous to herself, in need of involuntary commitment for her own protection. The third email was the cruelest. It was a draft petition for guardianship, with David listed as petitioner, seeking legal authority to make all medical, financial, and personal decisions for Sarah due to her demonstrated inability to care for herself or make rational choices. They were going to take away her autonomy, turn her into a legal child, a ward of her own husband. My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped the phone. This wasn't just manipulation. This was premeditated destruction of a human being. They'd been planning this for months, maybe longer, building their case, forging documents, lining up their witnesses. And they'd used my money to do it. I opened my banking app again, this time going back further. 3 years of transfers. I started taking screenshots, documenting every transaction, every note, every date. Then I opened my email and searched for every conversation with David. Found the emails where he'd requested money, the ones where he'd thanked me so effusively. You're saving our lives, Margaret. Sarah cries with gratitude every time you help us. We couldn't do this without you. Lies, every word was a lie. But they were lies I had in writing, lies I could prove. I was on my 47th screenshot when I heard Sarah stir. She sat up slowly, disoriented, her hair tangled around her face. For just a moment, she looked peaceful. Then reality crashed back in, and I watched her face crumble. It wasn't a nightmare, she whispered. No, baby, it wasn't. She pulled her knees to her chest, making herself small. What time is it? 6:37. Christmas morning. I forced brightness into my voice. Merry Christmas. She laughed, that broken sound again. Merry Christmas. The year I spent 4 hours freezing on a porch and found out my husband stole $300,000 from my mother. Our best Christmas yet, I said dryly, and that got a real laugh from her. Small but real. I stood, my joints protesting after sitting all night. I'm ordering room service, the biggest breakfast they have. You're going to eat, and then we're going to talk about what happens next. Mom. Non-negotiable. Food first, then talking. I called room service and ordered everything. Pancakes, waffles, eggs Benedict, bacon, sausage, fresh fruit, pastries, orange juice, coffee. The woman taking my order paused. Ma'am, that's quite a lot for 2 people. It's Christmas, I said. We're celebrating. While we waited for food, I helped Sarah brush her hair, something I hadn't done since she was 12, since before she decided she was too old for mother-daughter rituals. Her hair was longer than I'd realized, falling almost to her waist. It had always been her best feature, thick and dark and silky. When did you last get it cut? I asked. I don't remember. David likes it long. Says short hair makes women look masculine. Of course he did. One more way to control her. Long hair was work washing, drying, styling, time-consuming. The kind of thing that kept a woman occupied, kept her focused on pleasing her husband instead of questioning him. After breakfast, we're going to the hotel salon. You're getting whatever haircut you want. Sarah met my eyes in the bathroom mirror. He'll be so angry. Good. Let him be angry. He's not here. He can't touch you. But eventually I'll have to see him again. For the divorce. For dividing property. Not if I can help it. We're getting you the best divorce attorney in Colorado. Someone who specializes in financial fraud and domestic abuse cases. I set down the brush. And before you say you can't afford it, that's what mothers are for. I may have wasted $300,000 on David, but I'm not done spending money on your future. Room service arrived in a flurry of silver-covered plates and white-gloved efficiency. The spread covered the entire dining table, so much food it looked like a magazine photo shoot. The server, a young man with kind eyes, wished us Merry Christmas and discreetly pretended not to notice Sarah's red eyes or my rumpled clothes from sleeping in a chair. Eat, I commanded, piling pancakes onto Sarah's plate. I can't possibly. 3 bites. Start with 3 bites. She took 1 bite, chewed mechanically, swallowed with difficulty, took a 2nd bite. By the 3rd, something shifted in her face. She reached for a strawberry, then a piece of bacon. Then she was eating, really eating, faster than she should have been, like someone who'd been starving. How long had they been withholding food? Or had Sarah simply stopped eating on her own, too depressed to care whether she lived or died? I ate too, though everything tasted like cardboard. My mind was already 3 steps ahead, planning. I needed a lawyer, a financial investigator, a therapist for Sarah, a safe place for her to stay long-term. The hotel was fine for now, but I couldn't keep a corporate suite indefinitely. Mom? Sarah's voice interrupted my mental checklist. The emails David's lawyer sent. Can I see them? I hesitated. They're not pleasant. I need to see them. I need to know what we're up against. I handed her my phone, watched her face as she read. Watched the color drain away again, watched her hands start shaking. When she got to the fake psychiatric evaluation, she made a sound like a wounded animal. Dr. Edmund Whitmore. That's Robert's brother. I met him once, at Thanksgiving 2 years ago. We talked for maybe 10 minutes about the weather and the Broncos. She looked up at me, eyes wild. He never evaluated me. I've never been his patient. This is completely fabricated. I know. But it looks real. It has his letterhead. His signature. Official diagnostic codes. She scrolled further. Mom, he's written here that I attempted suicide in September. That I was hospitalized for 72 hours. That I tried to overdose on David's sleeping pills. Did any of that happen? No, none of it. In September, I had a cold. I stayed in bed for 3 days watching Netflix. That's it. That's the only time I was hospitalized in my own bedroom with a box of tissues and chicken soup. But the lies were documented now. Official. In a report that would follow Sarah for the rest of her life. Every background check, every job application, every attempt to get insurance this fabricated suicide attempt would haunt her. "We're going to fight this," I said. "We're going to expose every lie. But Sarah, I need you to be honest with me. Completely honest. Have you ever been hospitalized? Have you ever tried to hurt yourself?" She set down the phone, her jaw tight. After the fourth miscarriage, I thought about it. Just thought. I was so tired of hurting, so tired of disappointing everyone. I was sitting in the bathroom with a bottle of Tylenol, and I thought about how easy it would be to just stop existing. Tears spilled down her cheeks. But I didn't do it. I called you instead. Do you remember? July 16th. I called you crying and you were in a meeting, but you answered anyway. I remembered. I'd been presenting to a major client a $12 million account, and I'd seen Sarah's name on my phone and immediately excused myself. We'd talked for 47 minutes. She'd cried. I'd cried. I'd wanted to fly to Denver that same day, but Sarah had insisted she was okay. Said she just needed to hear my voice. And I'd believed her, flew back to Boston the next day, sent her $10,000 with a note that said, "For therapy, please find someone good." Another $10,000 David had probably pocketed. "I should have come to you," I said, that day. "I should have gotten on a plane. You were working. You were building a career. You had responsibilities. You were my responsibility." The words exploded out of me. "You are my daughter, my only child, my only family. And I chose boardroom presentations over making sure you were safe." Sarah reached across the table, took my hand. "Mom, you didn't know. How could you have known?" "Because I'm your mother. Mothers are supposed to know." We sat like that, holding hands across a table covered in half-eaten Christmas breakfast, two women drowning in guilt and grief and rage. My phone buzzed. A new number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Margaret Chen?" A woman's voice, professional but warm. "Yes? My name is Detective Lisa Moreno, Denver Police Department. I'm calling about a report filed last night by the Whitmore family. They claim you assaulted Patricia Whitmore and kidnapped Sarah Whitmore. I'd like to hear your side of the story. Would you be willing to come to the station today?" My heart stopped. This was it. They were actually going through with criminal charges. "I'll be there," I said, "but I'm bringing my lawyer. And I'm bringing evidence that will prove the Whitmores are the ones who belong in jail." There was a pause. Then, "Mrs. Chen, off the record?" I responded to a wellness check at the Whitmore residence 3 months ago. Neighbor called about screaming. When I arrived, Sarah had a black eye. She claimed she'd walked into a cabinet door. Another pause. "I didn't believe her then. I'd like to believe you now. Come to the station. Bring your evidence. Bring your daughter if she's willing. Let's sort out what really happened on that porch." The call ended. I looked at Sarah. She'd heard every word. "She remembers me," Sarah whispered. "The detective. She was so kind. She gave me her card. Told me to call if I ever needed help." Her voice broke. David threw the card away. Said I was embarrassing him with my clumsiness. I stood up, my decision made. "Get dressed. We're going to the police station. We're telling them everything. And then we're going to war." The Denver Police Department's main precinct on Cherokee Street looked nothing like the crime dramas on television. No dramatic lighting, no intense music, just fluorescent bulbs humming overhead and the smell of burnt coffee mixing with industrial cleaner. Sarah held my hand so tightly I lost circulation in my fingers, but I didn't pull away. She needed an anchor, and I would be whatever she needed. Detective Lisa Moreno met us in the lobby. She was maybe 40, with dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail and eyes that had seen too much but somehow remained kind. She shook my hand firmly, then turned to Sarah with a gentler touch. "Mrs. Whitmore, it's good to see you again. I wish it were under better circumstances." Sarah's voice came out barely above a whisper. "It's just Sarah now. Or it will be soon." Detective Moreno nodded, understanding immediately. "Sarah, then, come with me. We have a private room where we can talk." She led us through a maze of desks and officers working Christmas morning because crime doesn't take holidays to a small interview room. Not an interrogation room, I noticed with relief. This one had comfortable chairs, a box of tissues on the table, and artwork on the walls that looked like it came from an elementary school donation drive. "Coffee? Water?" Detective Moreno asked. Water, please, I said. Sarah just shook her head. While the detective stepped out, I looked around the room. A children's drawing hung crookedly on the wall, a house with a huge sun, a family of stick figures holding hands, the words "safe place" written in crayon across the top. Some child's vision of what home should be. What Sarah's home had never been. Detective Moreno returned with 2 bottles of water and a notepad. She sat across from us, her posture open and non-threatening. Before we begin, I want to be clear about something. The Whitmores filed a report last night claiming assault, kidnapping, and custodial interference. Those are serious allegations. But I've been a detective for 15 years, and I've learned that police reports don't always tell the whole story. She looked directly at Sarah. I remember that wellness check. I remember thinking something was very wrong, so I'm here to listen to your whole story. All of it. Start wherever you feel comfortable. Sarah looked at me, panic in her eyes. I squeezed her hand. Do you want me to start? She nodded gratefully. I took a breath and began with Christmas Eve. The unanswered calls. The taxi ride to Cherry Creek. Finding Sarah on the porch in -5-degree weather. But as I talked, memories flooded back, things I'd ignored or explained away over the past 3 years. Warning signs I'd been too far away, too busy, too trusting to see. It started before the wedding, I heard myself say. Little things. David suggesting Sarah should quit her teaching job because Whitmore wives don't work. I thought it was old-fashioned but harmless. Then at the wedding, Patricia pulled me aside and said Sarah needed to learn her place in the family. I thought she meant learning family traditions, customs. I didn't realize she meant subordination. Detective Moreno supplied quietly. Yes, the word tasted bitter. After they got married, Sarah's calls became less frequent. When we did talk, she sounded different, quieter. She stopped telling me about her day, her thoughts, her feelings. Just surface things. Everything's fine, Mom. David's great. His family is wonderful. Classic isolation, the detective said, making notes. Continue. Then came the miscarriages. 4 in 2 years. Each one devastated her. Each one made her retreat further into herself. I pulled out my phone, showing the transaction history. And each time, David called asking for money. Medical bills, he said. Fertility treatments. Therapy. I sent everything he asked for. Detective Moreno's eyes widened as she scrolled through the amounts. $300,000. Sarah never saw a penny of it. She didn't even know I'd sent it. The detective looked at Sarah. You had no knowledge of these transfers? Sarah shook her head, her voice hoarse. David handles all the finances. He said it was too stressful for me to deal with bills and bank accounts, that I should focus on getting better, on trying to have a baby. She laughed bitterly. Getting better. Like grief is an illness you can cure if you just try hard enough. Tell me about yesterday, Detective Moreno said gently. Christmas Eve. What happened before your mother arrived? Sarah's whole body tensed. I felt it through our joined hands. The Whitmores host Christmas Eve every year. It's this big production. Patricia plans it for months. Everything has to be perfect. The decorations, the food, the table settings. She uses her grandmother's china, the Wedgwood set that's been in the family since 1873. The gravy boat, I said. Sarah nodded. I was helping serve dinner. My hands were shaking. They shake sometimes now. I don't know why. The gravy boat slipped. It shattered on the hardwood floor. And everything just stopped. The detective leaned forward slightly. What happened next? Patricia screamed. Not just yelled. Screamed. Like I'd murdered someone instead of breaking a dish. Sarah's voice started to shake. She said I'd destroyed a priceless family heirloom. That I was careless and stupid and worthless. Ashley joined in, saying I was always breaking things, ruining everything I touched. Robert said I needed to learn to be more careful, that actions have consequences. And David? Detective Moreno asked. Sarah's face went blank. The expression I'd seen too many times, the one that meant she was retreating somewhere inside herself where the words couldn't reach. David grabbed my arm, pulled me into the kitchen, away from everyone else. I looked at her wrists, at those finger-shaped bruises now a deep purple yellow. Detective Moreno saw them too. May I photograph those? She asked quietly. Sarah nodded, and the detective pulled out her phone, carefully documenting each bruise from multiple angles. What happened in the kitchen, Sarah? He didn't yell either. That's what people don't understand. David never yells. He gets very quiet, very calm. He said I'd embarrassed him in front of his family, that I'd ruined Christmas for everyone, that maybe if I wasn't so wrapped up in my depression, I could function like a normal person. Tears started sliding down her cheeks. Then he said his parents had been right all along, that marrying me was a mistake, that I was defective. That's the word he used, defective. Like I was a product with a manufacturing error. Detective Moreno's pen moved steadily across her notepad, but I saw her jaw clench. He opened the back door and told me to stand outside until I could come back in with a better attitude. He said the cold might help clear my head. Help me remember what real problems were like, since I seemed to have forgotten. Sarah's voice dropped to almost nothing. When I tried to argue, tried to say it was dangerous, he said if I came back inside without permission, he'd have me committed. He'd call his Uncle Edmund, the psychiatrist, and have me evaluated. Involuntarily. He said one phone call and I'd spend New Year's in a psychiatric ward. The room went silent, except for the hum of fluorescent lights. How long were you outside? The detective asked. I don't know exactly. A long time. At first I stood by the back door, thinking he'd let me back in after a few minutes. But he didn't. I could hear them through the walls, laughing, talking, Ashley's kids opening presents. Sarah's voice broke. After maybe an hour, I couldn't feel my feet anymore. I tried knocking on the door. Nobody came. I tried calling through the window. Nobody acknowledged me. So I went around to the front porch, thinking maybe a neighbor would see me. Maybe someone would help. Did anyone see you? I don't think so. It was snowing hard. Everyone was inside with their own families. I sat down on the porch chair because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. I thought about knocking on the front door, but I was so tired, and I could see them through the bay window. All of them. Sitting around that beautiful table with all that food, raising their champagne glasses, celebrating Christmas, and I was outside freezing, and nobody cared. I couldn't hold back anymore. They left her there for 4 hours. 4 hours in sub-zero temperatures. She could have died. But I didn't, Sarah said softly. Because Mom came. She always comes when I need her, even when I don't know I need her. Detective Moreno set down her pen. Sarah, I need to ask you some difficult questions now. Has David ever hit you? No. He doesn't hit. He's too smart for that. Has he ever pushed you? Restrained you? Prevented you from leaving? Sarah hesitated. Sometimes when we argue, he blocks doorways, stands between me and the exit, says we're not done talking until he says we're done. Once he took my car keys and hid them for 3 days because I said I wanted to visit a friend. He said I was being selfish, choosing friends over family time. Has he ever threatened you? Just the commitment thing. And he says sometimes that if I ever tried to leave him, I'd lose everything. That his family has connections, that judges and lawyers and doctors all owe them favors, that nobody would believe me over them. She looked up, meeting the detective's eyes. And he's right, isn't he? Look at what they're doing. They filed charges against my mother for rescuing me. They're going to make her look like the criminal while they look like the victims. Not if I can help it, Detective Moreno said firmly. She turned to me. Mrs. Chen, tell me exactly what happened when you arrived at the house. I recounted everything. Finding Sarah, wrapping her in my jacket, approaching the door, Patricia answering with her wine glass and fake politeness, David blocking the entrance. The confrontation, the way I'd pushed past them to get Sarah warm. Did you physically touch Patricia Whitmore at any point? I stepped close to her, very close. I told her exactly what I thought of people who leave vulnerable women outside to freeze. But I never touched her, never laid a hand on her. Did you threaten her? I said they would pay for what they did to Sarah. I meant legally. I meant I'd hire lawyers and expose them. But I never specified violence. Detective Moreno made more notes. And Sarah came with you willingly? She could barely walk. I carried her to the taxi. So, not kidnapping. Emergency medical intervention for someone in danger of hypothermia. The detective looked at Sarah. Did you want to leave with your mother? Yes. God. Yes. I was so cold, so scared, so tired of being there. When I saw Mom, it was like drowning and finally breaking the surface. Sarah's voice strengthened. I went willingly. I wanted to go. I want to stay gone. Detective Moreno closed her notepad. Okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to recommend that the DA drop all charges against Mrs. Chen. Based on your testimony, this was a welfare check and voluntary departure, not assault or kidnapping. However, she held up a hand as relief flooded through me. The Whitmores have significant influence in this city. They're going to fight this. They're going to push for prosecution. So you both need excellent legal representation. I'm calling a lawyer as soon as we leave here, I said. Good. Call Laura Kim at Kim & Associates. Tell her I sent you. She specializes in high-conflict divorces and domestic financial abuse. She's taken down bigger families than the Whitmores. Detective Moreno pulled out her card. And Sarah, this is my direct number, not the station, my personal cell. You call me anytime, day or night, if David shows up, if you feel unsafe. If you just need someone to talk to who understands what you're going through. Sarah took the card with trembling hands. Thank you. One more thing. The detective's voice hardened. That psychiatric evaluation from Edmund Whitmore? The one claiming you attempted suicide? I'm forwarding it to the state medical board. Fabricating medical records is a serious crime. He could lose whatever's left of his medical license. Hope flickered in my chest. You believe us? I believe evidence. And the evidence says the Whitmores are running a sophisticated manipulation and financial fraud operation, with your daughter as the primary victim. She stood. Get yourself that lawyer. Document everything. And prepare for a fight. Because the Whitmores don't lose gracefully. As we left the precinct, stepping back into Christmas morning sunshine, I felt something shift. We weren't helpless anymore. We weren't alone. We had an ally. We had evidence. And we had each other. Laura Kim's law office sat in the Lodo district of Denver, housed in a renovated brick building that had once been a warehouse. The lobby was all exposed brick and modern art, the kind of place that whispered expensive without shouting it. Normally, I would have been intimidated. But after everything we'd been through in the past 24 hours, decorative intimidation meant nothing. The receptionist, a young man with kind eyes and a Christmas sweater featuring a T-Rex in a Santa hat, looked up as we entered. Mrs. Chen? Miss Kim is expecting you. She cleared her entire afternoon. On Christmas Day? I asked, surprised. Miss Kim doesn't celebrate Christmas, and she has a particular interest in cases involving wealthy families who think they're above the law. He smiled. You're in excellent hands. Laura Kim was not what I expected. Somehow I'd pictured someone older, severe, intimidating. Instead, she was maybe 45, petite, wearing jeans and a sweater that looked more yoga casual than courtroom warrior. But when she shook my hand, her grip was steel. Margaret. Sarah. She gestured to a conference room. Please, sit. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Tea? Something stronger? Just water, I said. Sarah nodded in agreement. Once we were settled, Laura pulled out a yellow legal pad, old school, I noticed, not a tablet or laptop. Detective Moreno filled me in on the basics, but I want to hear everything directly from you. Start at the beginning. How did Sarah meet David? Sarah's voice was quiet but steady. She'd found some strength at the police station, some core of herself that hadn't been completely crushed. Online, a dating app, 5 years ago. I was 23, teaching second grade at an elementary school in Aurora. He was 28, working at his father's law firm. He seemed perfect, charming, successful. He took me to nice restaurants, sent flowers to my classroom, planned elaborate dates. Love bombing, Laura said, making notes. Classic abuser tactic. Continue. We dated for 8 months. Then he proposed. A big production at the Denver Botanic Gardens with a string quartet and a photographer. His whole family was there, like they'd known it was coming. It felt magical, like a fairy tale. Sarah's voice turned bitter. I should have seen the red flags. The way Patricia immediately started planning our wedding without asking what I wanted. The way Robert pulled my teaching credential and ran a background check on my family. The way Ashley made comments about my dress size and whether I'd lose weight before the wedding. But you were in love, Laura said gently. And they were skilled manipulators. Don't blame yourself for not seeing what they deliberately hid. I squeezed Sarah's hand. Tell her about after the wedding. David said I should quit teaching, that his family had certain expectations about how a Whitmore wife should conduct herself. I thought he meant hosting dinner parties, doing charity work. I didn't realize he meant I'd have no income, no independence, no life outside of serving his family's needs. Sarah took a shaky breath. I quit, gave up my career, and within 3 months, I was pregnant. We were so excited. David kept saying he couldn't wait to be a father. His parents ordered custom furniture for the nursery. Patricia started planning a baby shower. "What happened?" Laura asked, though her expression said she already knew. "I lost the baby at 12 weeks. Miscarriage. The doctor said it was common, nothing I did wrong, just biology. But Patricia said maybe I'd been too stressed." David wondered if I'd been eating right. Ashley suggested I'd been too focused on myself instead of taking care of the pregnancy. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. They made it my fault. Like I'd failed at the one job that mattered. Laura's pen moved faster. "And the other pregnancies?" 3 more. Lost at 9 weeks. 14 weeks. 8 weeks. Each time, the blame got worse. Patricia started saying maybe my body was rejecting the babies because I wasn't Whitmore material. David started suggesting I see specialists, get tests, figure out what was wrong with me. His uncle Edmund, the psychiatrist, said maybe I had subconscious issues with motherhood. Maybe I was sabotaging my own pregnancies. "That's medically and psychologically absurd," Laura said flatly, "but effective at breaking someone down, making them believe they're defective." "It worked," Sarah whispered. I started believing it, started thinking maybe they were right, maybe I was broken, maybe I didn't deserve to be a mother. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. While all this was happening, David was calling me, constantly, always with emergencies, medical bills, fertility treatments, home repairs, investment opportunities. I sent money every time because I thought I was helping Sarah, helping them build a life. Laura looked at the bank statements I'd printed that morning at the hotel business center. Her eyebrows climbed higher with each page. $300,000 over 3 years. And Sarah never saw any of it? "We kept separate accounts," Sarah said. David said it was cleaner that way. Better for taxes. He gave me an allowance, $500 a month for groceries and personal items. If I needed anything else, I had to ask, justify every expense, show receipts. $500 a month, Laura repeated, while he was receiving thousands from your mother monthly. "Where did it go?" I asked. "That's what I need to know. Where is my money?" Laura pulled out her laptop. "I have an investigator who specializes in financial forensics. With your permission, I'll have him trace every transfer. But I can already guess. Offshore accounts, shell companies, real estate in other names, luxury purchases disguised as business expenses." She looked at me seriously. "Margaret, you need to understand something. We might not recover most of that money. David and his family have had years to hide it, launder it, make it disappear." The words hit like a physical blow. $300,000, gone. Stolen by the man I'd trusted with my daughter's happiness. "I don't care about the money," I said, though my voice shook. "I care about making sure they can't do this to anyone else. I want them exposed. Destroyed. I want everyone to know what the Whitmore family really is." If you find this part truly thought-provoking, go ahead and hit like to show your support. Do you feel the same way as the character in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. "We can do that," Laura said, "but it won't be easy." Robert Whitmore spent 30 years on the bench. He has connections in every courtroom in Colorado, judges who owe him favors, attorneys who won't want to cross him. We're going up against the entire establishment. "I don't care," I repeated. "Tell me what we need to do." Laura flipped to a fresh page. "First, we file for divorce, immediately. On grounds of fraud, financial abuse, and emotional cruelty. We request an emergency restraining order preventing David from contacting Sarah or coming within 500 feet of her. We freeze all marital assets pending investigation." "He'll fight every step," Sarah said. "Of course he will. But we have evidence he doesn't know we have. Your mother's documentation of every transfer, Detective Moreno's report about the hypothermia incident, the photographs of your bruises." And Laura paused dramatically. "The Ring doorbell footage." Sarah and I both froze. "What Ring footage?" I asked. "The Whitmore house has a Ring doorbell. Did you know that, Sarah? Sarah shook her head slowly. Ring stores footage in the cloud for 60 days, which means we can subpoena video from Christmas Eve. Video that will show exactly how long you were outside, what condition you were in, and whether anyone checked on you. Laura smiled, and it was predatory. Ring cameras also record audio. We'll have proof of everything they said about you, every insult, every threat, every moment they ignored your suffering. Hope bloomed in my chest, sharp and almost painful. Can we get that footage? Already working on it. I filed an emergency motion this morning. Judge Harriet Chen, no relation, I assume, is reviewing it now. She's no fan of the Whitmores. Robert ruled against her in a case 15 years ago that she's never forgotten. Laura's smile widened. Funny how these things come back around. What about the fake psychiatric evaluation? Sarah asked. The one claiming I tried to kill myself? That's a gift. Edmund Whitmore fabricating medical records is a federal crime. I've already contacted the state medical board, the FBI's white-collar crime division, and 3 medical ethics organizations. His career is over. And when we prove in court that the Whitmores forged psychiatric records to control you, it destroys their credibility on everything else. My phone buzzed. Another call from David. I'd lost count of how many he'd made. 40? 50? I'd blocked his number, but he kept calling from different phones. Don't answer, Laura said. In fact, give me your phone, both of you. She took our phones and did something with settings I didn't understand. I've forwarded all calls and texts from the Whitmores to a separate number that my office monitors. We're documenting everything. Every contact, every threat, every attempt at manipulation. It all becomes evidence. What if it's an emergency? Sarah asked. What if something happens to his parents? Or, not your problem anymore, Laura said firmly. You're not responsible for the Whitmores' emergencies. You're not responsible for their feelings. You're not responsible for anything except your own healing and safety. The words hung in the air. Sarah stared at Laura like she'd spoken a foreign language. Say it, Laura instructed, out loud. I'm not responsible for the Whitmores. Sarah's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I can't. Why not? Because. Sarah's face crumpled. Because if I'm not responsible for taking care of them, for making them happy, for being what they need me to be, then what am I? Who am I? And there it was, the core wound. The Whitmores had so thoroughly erased Sarah's identity that she no longer knew who she was without them. Laura set down her pen and looked directly at Sarah. You're a 28-year-old woman who survived something that would have broken most people. You're a former teacher who loved her students. You're a daughter with a mother who moved heaven and earth to find you. You're a person who deserves love, respect, and safety. That's who you are. Sarah's tears fell freely now. I don't feel like any of those things. I just feel empty, used up, like they took everything and left nothing. Then we rebuild from nothing, I said. We've done it before, haven't we? When your father died and we had nothing but each other? We survived that. We'll survive this. Laura's assistant knocked on the conference room door. Miss Kim? Judge Chen approved the motion. We have authorization to subpoena the ring footage. Laura's smile was fierce. Game on. She turned back to us. Here's what happens next. Tomorrow morning we file divorce papers. We hold a press conference. Yes, a press conference. We control the narrative before the Whitmores can spin it. We tell Sarah's story publicly, with her consent. We expose the financial fraud. We show the world who the Whitmores really are. David will destroy me, Sarah whispered. He said he would. He has power, connections, money. He has money he stole from your mother, Laura corrected, and we're about to take away his power. Because the one thing wealthy families like the Whitmores fear more than anything is public exposure. They can manipulate judges and lawyers, but they can't manipulate thousands of people watching their story unfold on the news. I looked at Sarah. It's your choice, baby. We can fight publicly or privately. But either way, we fight. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she straightened her shoulders, a small movement, but significant. I want to fight publicly. I want everyone to know. Maybe. Her voice strengthened. Maybe if I speak up, it'll help someone else. Someone else who's being told she's defective, she's broken, she's worthless. Maybe she'll see that she's not alone. Laura nodded approvingly. Then let's give them a war they'll never forget. As we left the office, the sun was setting over Denver, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Christmas Day was ending. Tomorrow would bring new battles. But for the first time in years, Sarah looked like she believed she could win. We spent that evening back at the Ritz-Carlton, ordering room service again, this time Chinese food because everything else was closed on Christmas. Sarah picked at her Kung Pao chicken while I obsessively refreshed my email, waiting for updates from Laura's investigator. "Mom, you need to eat," Sarah said, and I realized with a start that she was mothering me now. Role reversal. I know. I set down my phone. I keep thinking about all the times David called me, how convincing he was, how I believed every word. "He's good at it," Sarah said quietly. "That's what makes him dangerous. He doesn't seem like a villain. He seems charming, reasonable, concerned." She pushed rice around her plate. "When we first started dating, he'd tell these stories about difficult clients, about having to convince judges, about winning cases through persuasion. I thought it was impressive. I didn't realize I was watching a master manipulator practice his craft." My phone finally buzzed. An email from Laura with the subject line, "You need to see this." I opened it. There were 3 video files attached. My hands shook as I clicked the first one. The Ring doorbell footage was crystal clear. Date stamp, December 24th, 2025. Timestamp, 13 minutes to 5 in the evening. The video showed Sarah standing on the front porch, shivering, her arms wrapped around herself. She wasn't sitting yet, this was early. She looked back at the door, clearly hoping someone would open it. No one did. The timestamp jumped 12 minutes past 5 in the evening. Sarah was sitting now, hunched over, her body language screaming distress. Snow was accumulating on her shoulders. She knocked weakly on the door. Through the window beside the door, you could see shadows moving inside, people walking past. No one stopped. Another jump. 27 minutes to 7 in the evening. Sarah was curled into a ball, barely moving. Her lips were visibly blue even in the porch light. She'd stopped knocking. Stopped trying. Just sat there like she was waiting to die. "Oh God," Sarah whispered beside me. She was watching over my shoulder. I didn't realize. I knew it was bad, but seeing it. The final jump 17 minutes past 8 in the evening. That was when I arrived. The video showed me running up the walkway, dropping to my knees beside Sarah, wrapping her in my coat. You could hear my voice, tinny through the camera's microphone. "Sarah! Oh my God, Sarah!" And you could hear her response, barely audible. "Mom, you came." Tears blurred my vision. I clicked on the second video file. This one was from earlier in the day. 19 minutes to 5 in the evening. The front door opened and David literally pushed Sarah out onto the porch. Not a gentle push. A hard shove that made her stumble. His face was clear in the doorway, twisted with anger. "Stay out here until you remember how to act like an adult." His voice came through perfectly clear. "Maybe the cold will fix your attitude problem." Sarah's voice pleading, "David, please. It's freezing. I'm sorry about the gravy boat. Please let me come inside." "You should have thought about that before you destroyed a family heirloom." He started to close the door, then paused. "And Sarah? Don't even think about going to a neighbor. If you embarrass this family any further, I'll have you committed so fast your head will spin. Uncle Edmund has the paperwork ready. One phone call." The door slammed. Sarah stood there for a moment, stunned, then slowly sank onto the porch chair. "He threatened you on camera," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "He recorded his own crime." "He didn't know the camera was there," Sarah said softly. I turned to look at her. "What do you mean?" Sarah's face was pale but determined. "I installed that Ring doorbell 2 months ago, October 28th. I paid for it with money I'd saved from the grocery allowance, $20 here, $30 there, hidden in an envelope in my underwear drawer. It took me 4 months to save enough." My mouth fell open. "You installed a security camera without telling David?" "I installed it without telling anyone. Not even you." Sarah's voice was steady now, stronger than I'd heard it in days. "Because I knew. I knew something was wrong. I knew I needed evidence. I didn't know evidence of what, exactly. I thought maybe I was going crazy like they said. Thought maybe if I had video, I could watch it back and see if I was really as terrible as they claimed. Sarah. I couldn't find words. I set it up to record to a private cloud account David didn't know about. Email address I created at the library. Password he'd never guess. She laughed, but it was a hard sound. They called me stupid. Said I couldn't handle technology, couldn't manage accounts, couldn't be trusted with passwords. But I was smart enough to document everything. Pride swelled in my chest, so intense it hurt. You brilliant girl. You incredible brilliant girl. I have more, Sarah said. She pulled out a small USB drive from her pocket. When had she gotten that? Voice recordings. From my phone, before David took it. Conversations where Patricia calls me worthless. Where Ashley says I'm an embarrassment. Where Robert explains why no one would believe me if I ever spoke up. Her hands trembled, but her voice didn't. I've been collecting evidence for 8 months. Ever since Detective Moreno gave me her card, and I realized maybe I wasn't crazy. Maybe they were the problem. I stared at my daughter, this woman I thought had been completely broken, and realized she'd been fighting all along. Quietly, secretly, planning her escape even as she pretended to submit. Does Laura know about this? I asked. Not yet. I was afraid. I didn't know if we could trust anyone. David always said lawyers were just hired guns who'd say whatever they were paid to say. Sarah met my eyes. But Detective Moreno believes us, and Laura seems real. So yes, I'll give her everything. The third video file was the longest. It started at 3 minutes past 7 in the evening on Christmas Eve and ran for 47 minutes. The camera angle showed part of the bay window, and you could see into the dining room. The Whitmore family, gathered around their feast. I clicked play and immediately wished I hadn't. The audio was slightly muffled, but clear enough. Patricia's voice. Well, at least with Sarah outside we can enjoy Christmas without her depressing presence. Ashley. Seriously. She ruins every holiday with her victim act. David, laughing. Give her another hour. She'll come crawling back, apologizing like always. Robert. The girl needs serious psychiatric help. Edmund's evaluation was generous, if anything. Delusional disorder, paranoid tendencies, possible borderline personality disorder. Patricia. 4 miscarriages. It's nature's way of saying she's not meant to be a mother. Bad genetics. Weak constitution. Ashley's husband, whose name I didn't even know. So what happens to her? You keeping her around? David's response made my blood run cold. For now, Margaret's been a useful cash cow, sent us another 50 grand last month. Once that well runs dry, I'll probably divorce her. Claim mental instability. Get a quick settlement. Uncle Edmund's paperwork will make it easy. And Margaret won't fight it? Robert asked. Margaret feels guilty for not being around. She'll do whatever she thinks helps Sarah, including signing off on a divorce settlement that leaves Sarah with nothing. David's laugh was casual, relaxed. By the time they figure out where the money went, it'll be scattered across a dozen offshore accounts. Impossible to trace. The video continued. They ate. They drank. They opened presents. Ashley's children ran around squealing. At one point, one of the kids looked out the window and said, "Mommy, why is Aunt Sarah still outside?" Ashley's response, "Because Aunt Sarah needs to learn that being dramatic doesn't get you what you want, sweetie. She'll come in when she's ready to behave." The child, maybe 7 years old, but it's snowing. She looks cold. Then maybe she'll learn faster. I felt physically sick. These people, these monsters, had left my daughter to freeze while they celebrated Christmas, discussed her like she was livestock they might dispose of, and taught their children that cruelty was acceptable. Sarah was crying silently beside me, tears streaming down her face. Not sad tears, angry tears. "They never loved me," she whispered. "Not even a little. I was just a means to an end, a way to get money from you, a punching bag to make themselves feel superior." Sarah. No, it's okay. I mean, it's not okay, but I needed to hear it. Really hear it. Because part of me kept thinking maybe I was misunderstanding. Maybe they did care and I was too broken to see it. She wiped her face roughly. But there it is. Recorded proof. David planned to divorce me all along. Take everything and leave me with nothing. They've been running a con for 3 years and I was too stupid to see it. "You weren't stupid," I said fiercely. "You were trusting. You were kind. You believed people when they said they loved you. That's not stupidity. That's humanity. And they exploited it. Sarah took a shaky breath. Send it all to Laura. Every video, every audio file, everything on this USB drive. And Mom? Her voice turned to steel. I want to destroy them. Completely. I want them to lose everything the way they tried to make me lose everything. I pulled her into my arms. Then that's exactly what we'll do. I forwarded everything to Laura with a message. You wanted evidence? We have evidence. Call me as soon as you see this. My phone rang 30 seconds later. Margaret. Laura's voice vibrated with barely contained excitement. This is extraordinary. This is a prosecutor's dream. Wire fraud. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Elder financial abuse, yes, that applies to you. Extortion. Making false statements to obtain money. And that's just the federal charges. What about the threats about commitment? The fake psychiatric evaluation? Medical fraud. Conspiracy to deprive civil rights. Practicing medicine without proper oversight. Edmund's license is restricted. He's not supposed to be diagnosing anyone. Laura was clearly typing fast, her keyboard clicking in the background. Margaret, Sarah, I need you both to understand what this means. We're not just talking about a divorce anymore. We're talking about criminal prosecution. Federal charges. Prison time. Good, Sarah and I said in unison. Okay then. Laura's voice was grim. Tomorrow morning, I'm calling the FBI, the State Attorney General's office, every regulatory agency that has jurisdiction. And then we're holding that press conference, because once this breaks, the Whitmores will try to run, try to hide assets, destroy evidence, intimidate witnesses. We need to move fast and hit hard. We're ready, I said. After the call ended, Sarah and I sat in silence, the Chinese food cold and forgotten. Outside the windows, Denver glittered with Christmas lights, oblivious to the war we were preparing to wage. Mom? Sarah's voice was small. What if we lose? What if their connections are too strong? What if— We won't lose, I interrupted, because we have something they don't. What's that? The truth, and a daughter who was brave enough to document it even when everyone told her she was crazy. I squeezed her hand. You saved yourself, Sarah. You did that. I just showed up at the end, to help you carry what you'd already won. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we watched the city lights together, two warriors resting before battle. Tomorrow, the Whitmores would learn what happened when they underestimated the women they'd tried to destroy. Tomorrow, we'd show them that some things— truth, justice, a mother's love— couldn't be bought, manipulated, or silenced. Tomorrow, we'd make them pay for every lie, every theft, every moment Sarah had spent freezing on that porch. But tonight, we had each other. And that was enough. I woke at dawn on December 26th to find Sarah already awake, sitting by the window with her knees pulled to her chest, watching the sun paint the Rocky Mountains gold and pink. She looked small against the vast cityscape, fragile in a way that made my heart ache. Couldn't sleep? I asked softly. She shook her head without turning. Every time I close my eyes, I see them, sitting around that table, laughing while I froze, talking about me like I'm garbage they're planning to throw away. I moved to sit beside her on the window seat. We don't have to watch those videos again. Laura has everything she needs. It's not the videos. Sarah's voice was hollow. It's knowing. For 3 years, I thought maybe I was the problem. Maybe if I tried harder, was better, lost more weight, smiled more, complained less, maybe then they'd love me. But they never could, because you can't love someone you're using. The words hung between us, heavy with truth. Outside, Denver was waking up, early morning joggers, dog walkers, people starting their normal lives while ours was imploding. I sent you money for medical bills, I said, staring at my reflection in the window. David said you needed a specialist in California. $35,000 for a fertility expert who might be able to help. I wired it the same day. Sarah turned to look at me, her eyes red-rimmed. There was no specialist. I asked David once about seeing a fertility doctor. He said we couldn't afford it, that insurance wouldn't cover it, that I needed to accept maybe motherhood wasn't in my future. Her laugh was brittle. He used my grief to steal from you. Every baby I lost was another opportunity for him to cash in on your guilt. The observation cut deep because it was accurate. Every miscarriage had sent me scrambling for my checkbook, desperate to fix what couldn't be fixed with money. Desperate to ease Sarah's pain from 2,000 miles away. And David had known exactly which buttons to push. September 17th, Sarah said suddenly. Do you remember that date? I pulled out my phone, checking my transaction history. $60,000. David said it was for an investment in a tech startup. Said you were excited about securing your financial future. September 17th was the day after my fourth miscarriage. Sarah's voice cracked. I was still bleeding, still cramping. The doctor had given me pills for the pain, but they weren't working. I couldn't get out of bed. And David was on the phone with you, lying about tech startups, while I was losing another baby in the next room. The image hit me like a physical blow. Sarah, alone and grieving. David in the next room, mining her tragedy for profit. He came back after the call, Sarah continued. Told me you'd sent money. Said you really loved me, that you were always there for me, even from far away. I cried and thanked him for having such a generous mother-in-law, for being part of a family that cared. She wiped her eyes roughly. I thanked him, while he was stealing from us both. My phone buzzed. A text from Laura. FBI meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning. Press conference at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Are you both ready for this? I showed Sarah the message. Last chance to back out. We can fight this privately, quietly. We don't have to make it public. Sarah took a long breath, then stood up. No, we go public. David's biggest weapon is his reputation. Everyone thinks he's this successful investment banker, this upstanding member of the community. Patricia chairs charity boards. Robert is respected in legal circles. They hide behind their image while destroying people behind closed doors. She turned to face me, and I saw something new in her expression. Not the broken woman from 2 days ago, something harder, stronger. I want their image destroyed, Sarah said clearly. I want everyone to know what they really are. And if my humiliation, my 4 dead babies, my depression, my abuse, if sharing all of that publicly helps someone else recognize the warning signs in their own life, then it's worth it. Pride swelled in my chest. You're sure? I'm terrified, but yes, I'm sure. We spent the next 2 hours getting ready. Laura had sent over clothes from a personal shopper, simple but elegant outfits for both of us. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed wealth. Just 2 normal women preparing to tell their story. The hotel salon opened early at my request. Sarah sat in the chair, staring at her reflection. Her hair cascaded down her back, long and heavy. David loved my hair, she said quietly. He said it made me look feminine, soft. He'd get upset if I even mentioned cutting it. The stylist, a woman named Carmen with kind eyes and skilled hands, asked gently, "What would you like, honey?" Sarah met my eyes in the mirror. I nodded, giving her permission to choose for herself. "Cut it," Sarah said. "All of it. I want a bob, chin length. I want to look in the mirror and see someone new, someone who belongs to herself." Carmen smiled. "I can do that." I watched as she sectioned Sarah's hair, as the scissors made the first cut. Long strands of dark hair fell to the floor like chains breaking. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away from her reflection, didn't stop Carmen, just watched herself transform. When it was done, Sarah looked like a different person. The haircut framed her face, made her eyes look huge, highlighted cheekbones I hadn't seen in years. She looked younger, lighter, free. "I don't look like Mrs. Whitmore anymore," Sarah whispered. "No," I agreed, "you look like Sarah. Just Sarah. And she's beautiful." Carmen refused payment. "This one's on me. I left an abusive marriage 7 years ago. Nobody believed me either. Rich man, respected family, poor little wife making up stories." She squeezed Sarah's shoulder. "You go tell your truth, honey. Some of us are listening." The FBI field office was downtown, a nondescript building that could have housed anything. Special Agent Rachel Morrison met us in the lobby, 40s, blonde, wearing a pantsuit and an expression that said she'd seen too much human cruelty to be shocked by anything. Laura was already there, along with 2 assistant U.S. attorneys and a financial crimes specialist. They'd set up in a conference room with whiteboards covered in flowcharts and transaction records. "Mrs. Chen, Sarah." Agent Morrison shook our hands. "Thank you for coming in. We've reviewed the evidence your attorney provided. I want to be direct with you. This is one of the most clear-cut cases of wire fraud and conspiracy I've seen in 15 years with the Bureau." She clicked a remote, and a screen lit up with a map of bank transfers. David Whitmore has been systematically embezzling money from you, Mrs. Chen, for 3 years. The money flows through multiple accounts, some in his name, some in shell companies, some in offshore holdings. We've traced approximately $247,000 so far. The remaining $53,000 is still being tracked. $247,000, I repeated numbly. It was real. Seeing it mapped out like this made it horrifyingly real. Additionally, Agent Morrison continued, we found evidence that Robert Whitmore was aware of and possibly participating in the scheme. Patricia Whitmore benefited financially. The entire family was complicit. One of the prosecutors, a young man named Daniel Chen, no relation, spoke up. We're prepared to file federal charges against David Whitmore for wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and elder financial abuse. Against Edmund Whitmore for medical fraud and practicing outside the scope of his restricted license, and potentially against Robert and Patricia Whitmore as accessories. How long? Sarah asked. If they're convicted, how long would they go to prison? Wire fraud carries up to 20 years. Elder abuse adds another 5. With multiple counts, David could face 30 years minimum. Agent Morrison's expression was grim satisfaction. And we're very good at getting convictions in financial crimes cases, especially when we have video evidence of the defendant discussing his plans to defraud. Laura pulled out another folder. And then there's the civil case. Sarah will be filing for divorce, requesting full marital assets and significant damages for emotional distress, fraud, and abuse. We're estimating David's net worth, including the stolen money, at approximately $1.2 million. Sarah's head snapped up. 1.2 million? But he said we were barely getting by. He lied, Laura said simply. He's been living well, just not spending money on you. His personal accounts show luxury purchases, expensive trips, regular payments to Jessica Winters, his mistress, by the way. We found her through credit card records. The name hit like ice water. Mistress? We were getting to that, Laura said apologetically. Sarah, I'm sorry. David has been involved with a woman named Jessica Winters for approximately 2 years. She's 26, works as an associate at his firm. They've taken multiple trips together, Aspen, Santa Fe, San Diego, all charged to accounts funded by your mother's money. Sarah stood abruptly, walked to the window, pressed her forehead against the glass. I wanted to go to her, but sensed she needed space to process this betrayal on top of all the others. Is there more? Sarah's voice was muffled against the window. Agent Morrison and Laura exchanged glances. Yes, Laura said gently. Jessica is pregnant. 4 months. David has been telling her he's leaving you as soon as he can arrange a favorable divorce settlement. The conference room went silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Sarah's shoulders shook, and I couldn't tell if she was crying or laughing. When she turned around, it was laughter, harsh, bitter laughter that had nothing to do with humor. Of course she's pregnant. Of course she is. Sarah pressed her hands to her stomach, to the place where 4 babies had failed to thrive. I lose baby after baby, get told it's my fault, get called defective and worthless, and he gets his mistress pregnant with my mother's stolen money. Sarah, I started. No, it's perfect. Don't you see? It's absolutely perfect. Her voice rose, sharp with hysteria. He blamed me, made me think I was broken. But he was having healthy babies with someone else the whole time. Which means the problem wasn't me. It was never me. The problem was him and his toxic family and the stress they put me under. Laura nodded slowly. Actually, Sarah, there's medical research on this. Women in high-stress environments, particularly those experiencing emotional abuse, have significantly higher miscarriage rates. Your body was trying to protect you. On a biological level, it knew that environment wasn't safe for a child. If this part really struck a chord with you, tap that like button to let me know you're with me. Do you see yourself in the character's journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I can't wait to hear your take. Sarah sank back into her chair, her brief burst of manic energy draining away, so my body was smarter than I was. Your body kept you alive, I said firmly. That's what matters. Agent Morrison cleared her throat. We need to discuss next steps. The press conference. Once this goes public, the Whitmores will lawyer up. They'll attack your credibility, Sarah. They'll leak information about your mental health treatment, your miscarriages, anything they can use to paint you as unstable. Let them. Sarah said tiredly. I have video of them admitting they plan to do exactly that. I have recordings of Patricia calling me worthless. I have proof David threatened to have me institutionalized. They can attack all they want. The truth is on our side. Daniel Chen spoke up. There's one more thing. We found communications between David and his mistress discussing Sarah. Jessica sent him a text last month that said, quote, "Can't wait until you're finally free from that broken woman. Our baby deserves a real family." David responded, "Soon. Once Margaret's money runs out, there's no reason to keep pretending." The words should have hurt. Instead, I felt nothing but cold clarity. This wasn't a marriage that had failed. This was a long con, executed with precision by people who viewed other humans as marks. "I want them destroyed," I said quietly. "Professionally, financially, socially. I want them to lose everything." Agent Morrison smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "Then let's go talk to the press." The press conference was scheduled for 2 p.m. at the downtown Sheraton, but Laura wanted us there by noon to prepare. The hotel had set up a small ballroom with rows of chairs, a podium with microphones, and lighting that felt more appropriate for a Broadway show than a legal proceeding. "Local news will be here," Laura explained as we walked through the space. "Denver Post, Colorado Sun, probably some national outlets too once they hear what this is about. Financial fraud involving a prominent legal family makes good headlines." Sarah stood frozen in the doorway, staring at all those empty chairs that would soon be filled with reporters. "I don't know if I can do this." "You don't have to," I reminded her. "I can speak for both of us." "No." Sarah's voice was small but determined. "If I let you speak for me, I'm still letting other people control my narrative. David controlled it for 3 years. His family controlled it. Even you, Mom, with all your love and good intentions, you've been trying to protect me, control the story." She took a shaky breath. "I need to tell it myself." Laura nodded approvingly. "We'll prep you. Practice answers. But Sarah's right. Her voice, her story, her words, that's what will resonate with people." We spent the next hour in a prep room. Laura asked every horrible question reporters might ask. Sarah answered, stumbled, cried, started over. By the 11th run-through, her voice was steadier. By the 15th, she could talk about the miscarriages without breaking down completely. "What if they ask about the money?" Sarah asked. "What if they make it sound like Mom was stupid for sending it?" "Then you tell the truth," Laura said. "Your mother was a loving parent trying to help her daughter from 2,000 miles away. David Whitmore was a criminal who exploited that love. There's no shame in being a victim of a sophisticated con artist." At 1:30, Laura's phone rang. Her face went pale as she listened. "Are you certain?" "How many?" "Christ. Okay, we proceed as planned." She hung up and looked at us grimly. "The Whitmores are holding their own press conference, right now. At Robert's old law firm. They're claiming Sarah is mentally unstable, that I kidnapped her during a psychotic episode, that this is all a fabrication by an overbearing mother who can't accept her daughter's marriage." My blood pressure spiked. "They're getting ahead of us." "They're trying to," Laura corrected. "But they don't know we have the ring footage. They don't know about the FBI investigation. They're operating on the assumption that we're just an angry mother-daughter duo with no real evidence." She smiled coldly. "They're about to learn otherwise." Sarah pulled out her phone, pulling up a live stream of the Whitmore press conference. David stood at a podium, looking devastated in an expensive suit. Patricia dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Robert stood behind them, radiating dignified concern. "Our family is heartbroken," David was saying, his voice thick with fake emotion. "Sarah has been struggling with severe mental health issues for years. Multiple miscarriages sent her into a deep depression that we've all tried desperately to help her through. We've paid for therapy, medication, the best psychiatric care available." The lies rolled off his tongue like honey, smooth, believable, devastating. 2 nights ago, on Christmas Eve, Sarah had an episode. She became violent, destroyed a valuable family heirloom, and attacked my mother. We had no choice but to ask her to step outside and calm down. She was only outside for a few minutes, maybe 10, before her mother arrived and physically assaulted my mother, then took Sarah against her will. "Liar!" Sarah shouted at the phone. "I was outside for 4 hours. You have ring footage that proves it." "We're deeply concerned for Sarah's safety," David continued. Her mother, Margaret Chen, has been sending concerning messages about destroying our family, about revenge. We believe Sarah is being held against her will, possibly being coached to make false allegations against us. We're asking anyone who sees Sarah to contact authorities immediately." The reporter asked, "Mr. Whitmore, there are allegations of financial impropriety. Can you address those?" David's expression was perfectly calibrated. Surprised, hurt, confused. "I have no idea what you're referring to. My mother-in-law occasionally sent gifts to help us out, but we've been financially independent. All of our assets are documented and legal. If Margaret is now claiming otherwise, it's just further evidence of the instability in that relationship." Patricia leaned into the microphone. "We love Sarah. We've always loved her like a daughter. This breaks our hearts. All we want is for her to get the help she needs." The performance was masterful. If I hadn't known the truth, I would have believed them. They looked like concerned family members dealing with a tragedy, not criminals about to be exposed. Sarah's hands were shaking so badly she dropped the phone. "They're going to win. People will believe them. They look so believable," I finished, "because they've had 30 years of practice lying, but we have something they don't." "What?" "Proof." At 2 p.m. sharp, we walked into the ballroom. Every chair was filled. Cameras lined the back wall. The energy was electric, predatory. These reporters had just watched the Whitmore press conference. They were expecting drama. Laura approached the podium first. "Thank you all for coming. My name is Laura Kim, and I represent Sarah Chen Whitmore and her mother, Margaret Chen. We're here today to address the allegations made by the Whitmore family and to present evidence of a 3-year criminal conspiracy involving wire fraud, financial exploitation, and domestic abuse." The room erupted with questions. Laura held up a hand. "Please hold all questions until after our statement. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Rebecca Martinez, who has been treating Sarah for the past 48 hours. A woman in her 50s approached the podium. I recognized her from Laura's office yesterday. Kind eyes, professional demeanor. The kind of person juries trust. "I'm a licensed clinical psychologist specializing in trauma and abuse," Dr. Martinez began. "I've conducted a full psychiatric evaluation of Sarah Chen Whitmore over the past 2 days. I've reviewed her medical records, interviewed her extensively, and administered standard diagnostic assessments." She pulled out a document. "I can state unequivocally that Sarah does not suffer from any psychotic disorder, delusional disorder, or personality disorder. She does suffer from complex PTSD and depression, both of which are entirely consistent with being a victim of prolonged emotional and financial abuse. She is fully competent, fully aware, and fully capable of making her own decisions." A reporter called out, "But the Whitmores have a psychiatric evaluation from Dr. Edmund Whitmore that says otherwise." Dr. Martinez's expression hardened. Dr. Edmund Whitmore's medical license was restricted in California in 2017 for falsifying patient records. He is not authorized to practice in Colorado. "The evaluation the Whitmores are citing is fraudulent. Sarah was never his patient. She was never evaluated by him. The entire document is fabricated." The room exploded with noise. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions over each other. Laura waited for quiet. "Furthermore, we have evidence that David Whitmore threatened to have Sarah involuntarily committed using his uncle's fraudulent evaluation as justification. This constitutes conspiracy to deprive civil rights, medical fraud, and criminal coercion." She clicked a remote. The screen behind us lit up with a still image from the Ring doorbell footage. Sarah, curled up on the porch, clearly in distress. This is Sarah at 7:41 p.m. on Christmas Eve. She had been outside in -5-degree temperatures for nearly 3 hours at this point. She would remain outside for another 37 minutes before her mother arrived. Another click. The image changed to show David pushing Sarah out the door. You could see his face clearly. See the anger. See Sarah stumbling. This is 4:41 p.m. David Whitmore physically ejecting his wife from their home and threatening her with involuntary commitment if she seeks help from neighbors. Laura played the audio. David's voice filled the room. "Stay out here until you remember how to act like an adult. Maybe the cold will fix your attitude problem." The reporters were silent now, watching, listening. Sarah was outside for 4 hours and 6 minutes, not 10 minutes as David Whitmore claimed. During that time, she developed early-stage hypothermia. She could have died. Another click. This time, the video from inside the house, the Whitmore family eating, drinking, laughing. Patricia's voice. At least with Sarah outside, we can enjoy Christmas without her depressing presence. David, give her another hour. She'll come crawling back, apologizing like always. The footage of them discussing the financial fraud, David explaining how he'd been taking money from me, how he planned to divorce Sarah once the money dried up. When it was over, the room stayed silent. Not the restless silence of before. A stunned silence. Laura let it hang for a long moment. David Whitmore has stolen approximately $247,000 from Margaret Chen over 3 years. He did so by lying about medical expenses, home renovations, and investment opportunities. None of that money went to Sarah's care. Instead, it funded his lifestyle and his extramarital affair with Jessica Winters, who is currently pregnant with his child. More gasps, more furious scribbling from reporters. The FBI is currently investigating. Federal charges will be filed. We are also pursuing civil damages. Laura paused. Now, Sarah would like to say a few words. Sarah stood slowly. She looked so small approaching that podium, so young despite being 28. Her new haircut made her look vulnerable. But when she spoke, her voice carried. My name is Sarah. 3 years ago, I married a man I thought loved me. His family welcomed me with what I thought was kindness. I didn't see the cage they were building until I was already trapped inside. She gripped the podium edges. They took everything from me. My career, my friends, my money, my sense of self. They convinced me I was broken, defective, worthless. When I lost 4 babies, they blamed me. Called me weak. Said my body was rejecting the pregnancies, because even my own womb knew I wasn't good enough to be a mother. Her voice cracked, but she pushed through. I believed them. That's what abuse does. It makes you believe the lies, makes you think you deserve the cruelty. She looked directly at the cameras. But I didn't deserve it. No one deserves it. And if you're watching this, if you're in a situation where someone makes you feel worthless, makes you question your sanity, isolates you from support, please know you're not alone. You're not crazy. And you deserve better. Sarah pulled out a piece of paper, her hands shaking so badly the paper rattled. I want to read something David texted to his mistress last month. Once Margaret's money runs out, there's no reason to keep pretending. Sarah's served her purpose. She looked up, tears streaming down her face. That's what I was to him. A purpose. A means to an end. Not a person. Not a wife. Just a tool to extract money from my mother. The room was absolutely silent now. Every reporter transfixed. I'm speaking publicly today because silence protects abusers. Shame protects abusers. Rich families with good reputations, they count on victims staying quiet. They count on people not believing that successful men in expensive suits could be monsters. Sarah's voice strengthened. But I'm done protecting them. I'm done being ashamed. What happened to me wasn't my fault, and I'm going to make sure they face consequences. She stepped back from the podium. The room erupted. Questions flew from every direction. But Laura was already guiding us toward a side exit, where Agent Morrison and 2 FBI agents waited to escort us out. In the car, Sarah finally collapsed. All the strength that had held her upright evaporated. She curled into my side, sobbing so hard her whole body convulsed. You did it, I whispered into her hair. You told the truth. You were so brave. I don't feel brave. I feel destroyed. That's because you just relived your trauma in front of 50 reporters. But Sarah, I tilted her face up to look at me. You just saved lives. Women watching who are in similar situations, they now know they're not alone. They know it's not their fault. You gave them permission to fight back. My phone was already blowing up. Texts from colleagues, emails from friends I hadn't spoken to in years, and one message from a number I didn't recognize. Thank you. My husband does the same thing. I thought I was crazy. Now I know I'm not. I'm leaving tomorrow. I showed it to Sarah. She read it and cried harder, but this time mixed with grief. I heard something else. Relief. By 6 p.m., the press conference had been viewed over 2 million times online. By 8 p.m., it was the top trending topic on Twitter. By 10 p.m., major news networks were running full segments. Legal analysts were weighing in, and the Whitmore family's reputation was in freefall. We watched it unfold from the hotel suite, Sarah curled up on the couch with a blanket, me pacing like a caged animal, Laura on her laptop fielding calls from reporters, prosecutors, and what seemed like half of Denver's legal community. CNN wants an interview, Laura announced. So does Good Morning America, The Today Show, and Dr. Phil. Sarah shook her head violently. No, I can't do that again. Once was enough. That's fine, we'll decline. But Laura closed her laptop and looked at us seriously. This is going to get bigger before it gets smaller. The story has legs, wealthy family, stolen money, abuse, fraud. It has everything the media loves. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Margaret Chen? A man's voice, older, with a slight tremor. Yes? My name is Harold Mitchell. You don't know me, but I saw your daughter's press conference. I'm calling because Robert Whitmore destroyed my career 20 years ago. A pause. And I have evidence. I put the phone on speaker. Mr. Mitchell, I'm here with my daughter and our attorney. Would you mind repeating that? Robert Whitmore. When he was on the bench in 1998, I was an attorney who opposed him in a custody case. My client was a woman trying to escape an abusive marriage. Husband was connected, wealthy, prominent family. Sound familiar? His voice was bitter. I presented evidence of abuse, photos, medical records, testimony from the woman's therapist. Robert threw it all out, said the woman was hysterical, coached by an overzealous attorney, meaning me. Gave custody to the father. Laura was already taking notes. What happened to the woman? 3 months later, her ex-husband put her in the hospital, fractured skull, broken ribs, ruptured spleen. She barely survived. Mitchell's voice cracked. I tried to appeal Robert's ruling. Tried to get him investigated. Instead, he filed a complaint with the Bar Association, claiming I'd fabricated evidence. I was disbarred. Lost everything. My practice. My reputation. My marriage fell apart. I've been working as a paralegal for the past 20 years, the only legal work I'm allowed to do. Sarah sat up straight. You have proof Robert fixed the case? I have documents showing the husband paid Robert $50,000 2 weeks before the ruling. Wire transfer to an offshore account I tracked down. I've been sitting on it for 20 years because I had no platform, no credibility. A disbarred lawyer accusing a respected judge? No one would listen. He paused. But now, with your case making headlines, with the FBI investigating, maybe someone will finally pay attention. Laura's eyes gleamed. Mr. Mitchell, would you be willing to testify? To turn over your evidence? Lady, I've been waiting 20 years for someone to ask. After we got Mitchell's information and promised to connect him with Agent Morrison, 3 more calls came in. A former clerk from Robert's courtroom who'd seen him take bribes. A woman who'd been institutionalized on Edmund's recommendation after her wealthy husband wanted her out of the way. A journalist who'd tried to investigate the Whitmore family 5 years ago and been threatened with litigation. They've been doing this for decades, Laura said, her voice stunned. This isn't just about Sarah and the money. It's a pattern, a system. The Whitmores have been using their positions of power to abuse, defraud, and silence people for 30 years. And everyone was too scared to speak up, I said. Until now. Sarah was crying again, but this time it seemed like different tears. All those people, all those victims. If I'd spoken up sooner. Stop, Laura interrupted firmly. You spoke up when you could. When you were safe enough, strong enough, ready enough, you don't carry guilt for their crimes or for the system that protected them. Another call. This time it was Agent Morrison. Turn on Channel 7, now. I grabbed the remote. The local news was showing footage from outside Robert Whitmore's house in Cherry Creek, the same neighborhood where Sarah had lived. Police cars, FBI vehicles, agents carrying boxes. FBI raids former judge's home in fraud investigation, the Chiron read. The reporter's voice. Breaking news tonight, as federal agents execute search warrants at the homes of Robert and Patricia Whitmore, as well as their son David Whitmore and Robert's brother, Dr. Edmund Whitmore. This comes hours after explosive allegations of a multi-year fraud scheme targeting elderly victims. Sources tell us the investigation has expanded beyond the initial allegations made by Margaret Chen to include potential judicial corruption, medical fraud, and conspiracy charges. The camera panned to show David being led out of his house in handcuffs. He looked nothing like the composed man from his press conference. His hair was disheveled, his face red with rage, and he was screaming at the agents. "You can't do this. I'm a respected attorney. My father is a judge. I know the DA personally. This is harassment." An FBI agent I recognized, Agent Morrison, spoke calmly. "Mr. Whitmore, you're under arrest for wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and obstruction of justice. You have the right to remain silent." Sarah made a sound, half laugh, half sob. "They arrested him. They actually arrested him." "All of them," Laura said, pointing at the screen as Edmund Whitmore was also led out in handcuffs, followed by Robert Whitmore looking decades older than his 70 years. Patricia was the last one out. She was shouting at reporters, "This is a witch hunt. My family has served this community for generations. You're destroying innocent people based on lies from a mentally disturbed woman." But her words carried no weight anymore. Not after the ring footage, not after Sarah's testimony, not after 30 years of victims finally coming forward. My phone rang again. This time I recognized the number. My CEO, Richard Chen. No relation, but we'd worked together for 15 years. "Margaret, I just saw the news. Are you okay?" I don't know what I am, Richard. Take all the time you need. Your job will be here when you're ready." "And Margaret? The board met an hour ago. We're prepared to file a corporate complaint as well. You used your personal money, but you're a senior executive of this firm. David Whitmore defrauded one of our own. We're going after him too." After I hung up, Sarah asked quietly, "Are you going to lose your job over this?" "Are you kidding? My company is backing us. They're adding their weight to the case." I sat beside her, took her hand. "Sarah, I need you to understand something. This isn't just our fight anymore. It's become something bigger. A reckoning." The news continued. Legal experts analyzing the charges. Financial analysts estimating the total amount the Whitmores might have stolen over 3 decades. Preliminary estimates were over $5 million from multiple victims. Psychologists discussing the long-term effects of the type of abuse Sarah had endured. Then Jessica Winters appeared on screen, giving a tearful interview outside her apartment. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know he was stealing. David told me he was separated, that the divorce was almost final. He said Sarah was mentally ill and wouldn't agree to let him go. I believed him. He was so convincing." She pressed her hands to her pregnant belly. "Now I'm having a baby with a criminal. What am I supposed to do?" "Be a single mother," Sarah said flatly to the TV screen. "Like thousands of other women, welcome to reality." There was steel in her voice that made me proud. No sympathy for the mistress, no guilt, just cold, hard truth. Laura's phone rang. She listened, her face cycling through expressions: shock, satisfaction, grim pleasure. "Understood. Yes, we'll be there. Thank you." She hung up and looked at us with something like awe. That was the U.S. Attorney's Office. "They're filing formal charges tomorrow morning, all 4 Whitmores. David is being held without bail. As a flight risk, they found evidence he'd been transferring money to accounts in the Cayman Islands and had purchased a one-way ticket to Switzerland leaving next week." "He was going to run," I said. "With your money and his pregnant mistress, yes." Patricia and Robert are also being held pending arraignment. The DA is recommending no bail given Robert's connections and the risk of witness tampering. Edmund made bail, but his passport was seized. Sarah stood up and walked to the window, looking out at Denver's skyline. "It's really happening. They're really going to pay." "Yes," Laura said. "But Sarah, you need to prepare yourself. The trial will be brutal. David's defense attorneys will attack you. They'll try to prove you're unstable, that you fabricated everything. They'll put your mental health, your miscarriages, your entire life on trial." "Let them," Sarah said without turning around. "I'm not the one who committed crimes. I'm not the one who stole $300,000. I'm not the one who left someone outside to freeze to death. Let them attack me. The evidence speaks for itself." A knock at the door made us all jump. Laura checked the peephole, then opened it to reveal Detective Moreno. "Sorry to drop by unannounced," she said, "but I wanted to deliver this personally." She handed Sarah a document. Emergency restraining order. David, Robert, Patricia, and Edmund Whitmore are forbidden from contacting you or coming within 1,000 feet of you. Violation means immediate arrest. Sarah held the paper like it was made of glass. I don't have to see them? Not unless you choose to. Not at trial. You can testify remotely if you want. Not anywhere. You're legally protected now. After Detective Moreno left, Sarah read the restraining order over and over, like she couldn't quite believe it was real. I'm safe, she whispered. For the first time in 3 years, I'm actually safe. You're more than safe, I said. You're free. That night, I woke at 3 a.m. to find Sarah's bed empty. Panic seized me until I saw her silhouetted against the window, phone in hand. Sarah? She turned, and in the dim light from the city, I could see she was smiling, actually smiling. I've gotten 247 messages, Mom, from women who saw the press conference. Women who are in similar situations, or got out of similar situations. They're thanking me. They're telling me their stories. They're saying I gave them courage. She showed me her phone. Message after message. Stories of abuse, control, financial manipulation. Stories of escape. Stories of survival. This is what we fought for, Sarah said softly. Not just justice for me, justice for all of them. For everyone who's been told they're crazy, they're worthless, they're the problem. Her voice strengthened. The Whitmores thought they could destroy me. Instead, I'm destroying their entire empire of cruelty. I pulled my daughter into my arms, and we stood there in the darkness, watching Denver sleep. 2 warriors who'd found their strength in each other. Tomorrow would bring more battles, arraignments, legal motions, media scrutiny. But tonight, we had this proof that speaking truth to power could change lives. Proof that even the most powerful predators could be brought down. Proof that a mother's love and a daughter's courage could topple an empire built on lies. And that was enough. The arraignment was scheduled for 9 a.m. on December 27th at the federal courthouse downtown. Laura advised us not to attend, let them face the judge without an audience, she said, but I insisted on being there. Sarah needed to see this, needed to watch the Whitmores in handcuffs, facing consequences for the first time in their privileged lives. We arrived early, using a side entrance to avoid the media circus out front. The hallway outside the courtroom was already packed reporters, camera crews, curious onlookers who'd seen the viral press conference. Detective Moreno met us at the door, creating a path through the crowd. Stick close to me, she said. People are angry. Some are on your side, some aren't. She was right. As we passed, I heard whispers. Some supportive. That's her, the daughter. She's so brave. Others hostile. Gold digger ruining a good family. Probably made the whole thing up. Sarah's hand tightened on mine, but she kept walking, head high. Her new haircut made her look stronger somehow, less like a victim, more like a survivor. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, an American flag in the corner. Federal Magistrate Judge Harriet Chen presided, the same judge Laura had mentioned, the one with her own grudge against Robert Whitmore. She was maybe 60, Chinese-American like me, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. The Whitmores were brought in through a different entrance, David first, in an orange jumpsuit that was a far cry from his designer suits. His hair was greasy, uncombed. His face was puffy from what I suspected was a sleepless night in a holding cell. When he saw Sarah, something ugly crossed his expression, rage mixed with disbelief, like he couldn't quite process that his victim had the audacity to fight back. Robert came next, shuffling in shackles. He'd aged a decade overnight. The confident judge who'd manipulated courtrooms for 30 years was gone, replaced by a frightened old man facing federal charges. Patricia was sobbing dramatically, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, her pearls incongruous against the orange jumpsuit. "This is inhumane," she wailed to her attorney. "We're not criminals. We're victims of a vindictive campaign." Edmund brought up the rear, his face blank. Of all of them, he looked the least affected, sociopathic calm. Their attorneys were impressive, 3 from Morrison and Foster, Denver's most prestigious firm. Lead counsel was Marcus Brennan, silver-haired and media-savvy, known for getting wealthy clients off with minimal consequences. Judge Chen called the court to order. The United States of America versus David James Whitmore, Robert Harrison Whitmore, Patricia Ann Whitmore, and Edmund Victor Whitmore. Charges include wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, elder financial abuse, medical fraud, and obstruction of justice. She looked at the defendants over her glasses. How do the defendants plead? Brennan stood. Your Honor, my clients plead not guilty to all charges.